you have this device and you want to take, which has its own tool chain, which has its own like operating systems or whatever. You want to take this binary architecture, everything, right? Everything and it's not like using the word saying everything on it is living in a harmony together. It's just some sort of a shit glued together, which is like some sort of abomination that they've managed to like just make it work. And then you just want to take like one piece of that abomination and put it on the latest Linux version on your server. Of course, it's not going to work, right? Of course.
Hey guys, real quick, I just wanted to tell you about our sponsor, ThreatLocker. Now wait, before you hit the skip forward button, let me just say this. Most of the stuff that holds my attention nowadays is red team stuff as well. But I sat down with the ThreatLocker team this past week to do a demo of their EDR software, and it was super technically fascinating how this thing works. So check this out. You drop this thing on a system, right? And for the first week or so, it's creating a policy and a profile for that system. It's logging all the executables, what child processes are being spawned, the files and their hashes, that sort of thing. And it's creating this policy, okay? Then after the learning mode is up, we're in secured mode, and that policy gets put into place. And anything that's not on that allow list is immediately auto-denied. That's the zero trust piece, right? So in addition to that, they've got a bunch of crazy features like ring fencing and dynamic access controls that would stop a malicious hacker at pretty much every step along the way. Actually, I was watching this demo and I was kind of freaked out because I have no idea how I would cope with getting dropped into a ThreatLocker system as a red teamer. Anyway, if you want to learn more about this, head over to threatlocker.com and request a demo. And when you do, ask for my boy Andrew. His demo was super to the point and he was able to answer all my technical questions. All right, cool. Back to the show. Alrighty, dude. I am hyped for this episode. I have wanted to do an episode with someone from Pwn2Own since the beginning of this podcast, and finally we're having it happen. So, Sina, thanks so much for coming on the pod, man.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I'm so delighted to be here.
Yeah.
And I really don't know why you chose me to be here.
Well, dude,
to be here.
You've been cranking out content like crazy lately, and your bugs are amazing. So I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit as we go into the pod. But dude, I have to compliment this setup before we get rolling. Homie's got the DSLR in play, and you got like the hat behind you, and like it's looking fly, man.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for putting all that effort into it.
Thank you. Yeah, I do a lot of photography and like productions and different kind of stuff. And yeah, I sometimes use the same camera for these kind of cool meetings that we have, such as this one. And yeah, this is actually a hat from Pwn2Own.
Oh, nice.
I got it from there, and
sick.
Then I've had it signed by I don't know if it's if you can see it, but I've had it signed by Dustin Childs.
Oh, really? Nice.
He's a legend there. He works at Trend Micro Zero Day Initiative. He's the head of threat awareness, if I'm not wrong.
Nice.
Yeah.
I actually reached out to him when I was trying to source people for this episode, and I was like, "Hey, man, I see that you kind of run Pwn2Own. Who would you recommend for this episode?" Mm-hmm. And he gave me a couple names, and you were on that list, and I was like, "All right, this is my man." After I did a little bit of research into it, so shout out to Dustin as well for setting that up. All right, dude. So let's spend some time. Okay, so let me give a little context here. So, I'm someone who participates often in the HackerOne live hacking event scene, and you are someone that participates often in the Pwn2Own scene, right? And I kind of wanted to do an episode where we discuss the differences of these two worlds of bug bounty, right? Because I feel like there's the HackerOne, Bug Crowd, Integrity, that sort of group, and then there's like the Pwn2Own ZDI group. And we don't see a lot of overlap from them, oddly enough. And I think there is some reason for that. I think some of the skill sets are a little bit different, especially with Pwn2Own and ZDI primarily focusing on RCE as a vuln class, pwning, as you would say, a specific target. But so I'm excited to kind of iron out the differences between HackerOne related live hacking events and Pwn2Own related stuff. But I also, before we jump into all that, I want to hear a little bit about you and how you got into hacking and how you ended up at the Pwn2Own competitions.
I appreciate it. So first of all, let me just start saying English is not my first language. So if I kind of like do like a stutter or anything, I hope people forgive me about that. I'm trying my best, kind of.
Yeah.
And so about giving like a brief introduction about myself. I'm a full-time vulnerability researcher. I've been for the last I don't know how many years now. And when I started, I've actually started as a developer. I was making commercial websites with my brother when I was a kid. And then he kind of taught me like web development, basic stuff. And then we were just making websites and then finding customers to sell them, e-commerce websites, very, very simple stuff back in the day. And then actually one of my websites one day got hacked and then it got defaced.
Was this a bigger customer or was this a small site or like what was the?
It was a small customer, and then wow. But the problem was, so back in the day, I don't think people even do it nowadays, but I would just like make like, I don't know, five backends, and I would just change the front ends for different customers because it was e-commerce website, right? You have the shopping cart, you have checkout, all of that stuff. It's kind of, the logic is the same, right?
Very common components.
Then so I would just, exactly, the very, very common components. It would be like 5 different backends, and then the front ends would be like hundreds of different kind of front ends. One day one of my websites got hacked, and then they would keep getting hacked. Like the guy kind of like dorked it on Google or something, and then it was just like finding all of them and then just like blasting all of them, and then just defacing them and then just submitting them to these like kind of like defacing websites back in the day. Maybe let's not name them. But anyways, they were just submitting them, and I don't know, getting reputation, and it was just defacing them, and then. When I saw it initially, I was like, wow, it was the first time that I was like seeing something that I made was being hacked. And then I was like so surprised by it. And then I thought it over and I was like, let's actually reach out to the guy, because he defaced the website and then he left out his like email address like down the page saying like, I don't know, hacked by like this kind of like a cool hacker handle, and then some sort of a country flag was on it too as well, some like blood dripping from the page, like all this
of course
stuff,
very dramatic defacement.
And then exactly. And then he had his email address there, and then I reached out to him and I politely said, hey, I made the website, I'm the dev behind it, I do this for a living, and I was wondering if you can give me some pointers on how you did it so I can prevent it from happening again, so I can keep selling my stuff. And then the guy replied back to me, I think after 2 days, saying, he was like, I like your initiative on that you reached out to have the problem solved in some sort of a way. So he was like maybe impressed or something. And then he wrote back to me exactly with what the problem was. And he was using all of these like complicated terminologies, which back in the day I didn't kind of understand, like things like, oh, like you had a SQL injection here, and then after I exploited your SQL injection, I was able to, the user that was your website was being running on, was like a MySQL user with like root privileges, and I was able to like write to a file or something, and then after I write to a file, and then I managed to like visit the file and then get code execution with my web shell, and then the web shell from the old school back in the day, the ones that existed back in the time, and then he did it that way, and then he was giving me my code snippets back, like marking him exactly where the bug was.
Right. Wow.
Which was crazy.
Yeah.
And then I realized how far he was able to go when just through like from like an initial bug to another bug, but I didn't understand like chains or whatever back in the day. And then I was so like fascinated by like the things that he did. I've told him that I'm so grateful for all the explanation that you did. I'm actually so interested in this. I will try to pursue it to make my website better. And then it kind of like clicked from that way to doing like a lot of searches. There wasn't any kind of like a lot of resources, whatever. You had like these, I don't know, like a Chinese forums or a Russian forum or like a,
when was
forum
this in the
here and
timeline?
there.
Was this like, early 2000s or like when was this?
This is something like that. Wow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something
That's
like
crazy,
that.
Man.
And then
so not a lot of stuff out there for that at that time to learn how to hack.
It was, again, way more than like something from the 90s, maybe like way more. But no, you didn't have like payload all things or like something that it was like a centralized place that you had all the links to the latest techniques and tools and tricks and bypasses and mitigations. You didn't have people dropping bypasses on Twitter that much as they do now. Every day there's like a new bypass, right? And I was actually very interested in it, and then I've started like searching and translating. I had like this Babylon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right or wrong. This like Babylon translator on my desktop. I just like copy paste stuff to it, and then just try to understand like different kind of languages, what they were meaning, and then basically I've got it from there, and then I was so interested in it that I've started like pursuing it and going after it, and then trying to learn more and more and more. And then shout out to one guy who actually like played like a key role in my learning curve. People don't know him that much because he's not like globally well known. Like he's not. I don't think even he's on Twitter or something. His name is Maysam. Maysam Monsef. He was a teacher of mine back in the day that taught me a lot about web development security. He was like one of these like old school hackers who like learned everything by himself. Like he was from the 80s or like 90s something, and then everything by himself. Like and he was this like he still to this day he was like a legend to me back in the day, and he had like played like a very, very key role in my learning path and teaching me a lot of things. He helped me to build like a strong foundation in algorithm and understanding like coding and everything, not just copy pasting and like just like like he built like a really good foundation for me.
Skipping that script kiddie stuff. Yeah, exactly.
He like I can't tell you how much of a strong foundation he had. He has even still to this day, I'm sure. And that like taught me a lot about if you understand the architecture actually, instead of just copy pasting payloads and just getting your way. If you understand how actually things work, that takes you like a lot of extra mile.
Absolutely. But and I think so. I think it's really interesting that you started out from web dev and then you went to web hacking, right? And I think that's a pretty traditional flow for the people in like in the HackerOne scene as well. Is like, now we're focusing on these web bugs and like IDOR and access control related stuff, right? But then, instead of going down this path of like, oh, let me identify all these web bugs and do web related stuff quite as much, you end up somehow in the binary exploitation scene as well. So what was that progression like as a hacker? Like, when did you start switching from, all right, I'm finding SQLs in PHP code to, all right, let me load this thing up in Ghidra or whatever and start reverse engineering it?
That's actually a great question. So exactly back in the day, at that time that I started like working on web stuff, the same guy that I knew, he was actually an expert in like low-level exploitation, and he was very good at it. Like he was like this like C++ guru, and then he was able to like craft exploits for like kernel drivers and everything. And he was just like just genius. And then we were actually. So we didn't have access to like IDA, and Ghidra wasn't a thing back there, and like a lot of these assemblers that you see nowadays weren't a thing. So we were just like using like OllyDBG, if I'm pronouncing the name right. So it's like one of these like like one of these like really ancient, powerful, very, very, very powerful debuggers that I still see to this day people use. So he told me that listen, like you can use this like tool, and I don't have time. He didn't have a lot of time at his hand. He wasn't like a personal tutor or something. It was just he was like more like a friend. And then he kind of like encouraged me to go learn like assembly. And so he was very like he was very strict with foundation. So he wasn't like, okay, you just open this up, you just drag and drop something here, you look for this and that and click, done, or like copy paste stuff. He was very strict with building a strong foundation. And then that's why I went out and then like started like buying books and stuff about like learning assembly.
How did you meet this guy?
Like Hello World. We had like some sort of a local hacker meetup kind of thing back in the day.
Very cool.
That yeah, exactly. And then I was just trying to like connect with people to learn from them and stuff. And then I didn't end up making any friends, but I did end up meeting this guy. And then the way that I met this guy was actually through like, initially I thought he was just a web dev guy, but he was way more to what I thought he was. He was super humble guy, that he didn't just start like blabbering about, okay, I know this, I'm like the jack of all trades or whatever. He was actually very, he was a ninja. Like he is still to this day. Like, and he was also a great teacher, which not everybody can teach.
Yeah,
you can be great at what you do, but
that's a rare overlap. You know, if you have the ability to especially be a jack of all trades, have such a high amount of knowledge, and then be able to teach, and then furthermore to be able to teach in such a way that you give the student the right foundation and allow them to almost learn for themselves.
Exactly.
You know, teach them how to learn, how to get some of these skills along the way. So that's, man, what a blessing this guy was to you. And it seems like he was really key in your development.
Exactly. Yeah. He was like a high booster for me. If I am anything today, I haven't reached much today, but if I like reached anything like that you can like count it, it goes back to the roots of meeting with him. And basically, yeah, he encouraged me with like building the foundation. And then after like started like reading about like exactly at the same time. So I would like divide my day to doing like, okay, I'm gonna do web stuff. I'm gonna learn about like SQL injection, like I don't know, local file inclusion, remote file inclusion, this and that, and then serialization and whatever back in the day. And then I would be also doing dedicating some like 3-4 hours to reverse engineering, building up the foundation, like learning assembly and learning all of that. And then there wasn't much resources, but the ones that were available were actually good enough. And like at least for me, I think it was pretty important that things were more difficult back in the day, and that kind of helped me to struggle more and to try more. So nowadays that things are, I think, pretty much I think it kind of,
it's more developed, for sure.
I don't want to exactly, it's more developed, right? Maybe using the word easier will like offend someone. Not easier, but it's like more accessible to people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then that helps more into like finishing something. And then I think not having a lot of available things as much as today compared to back then, it kind of helped in like developing that kind of like intuition to not give up, and then just keep trying and keep trying and keep studying and keep studying and keep studying without thinking that when does it get over, because it never gets over. Like,
exactly.
It's just endless.
That's one of the things I always tell to the students that I work with is like, listen, you can read all these tutorials and you can go out there and like you said, a lot of the content is made really accessible nowadays. But the real learning is going to occur when you get out there and you fail 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 and you fail, but there's a finite number of failures between, now and the next time that you pop a crazy bug, right? And so you just got to get out there and start knocking those out of the way, because experience is going to be the best teacher in a lot of these scenarios. You see some of these newer guys just looking at HTTP requests and they're like, man, I have no idea what all of these headers mean, and I'm like, all right, well, just look it up real quick, and you got to pay the price to know, what these things are. And then once you started knocking them out, once you started doing some reps on it, you'll sort of get a sense for what's interesting and what's not interesting. And I think we've kind of inversely switched into a different problem now, which I see a lot of people fall into, which is what we call education procrastination, which is you're just constantly learning, reading, learning, and you never get to the actual doing part. And I think it's so important for beginners to get out there, even if you don't feel like you know what you're doing, even if you're just stabbing in the dark, to just get out there and fail and have that be a key part of your education process.
I don't want to sound like a guy who was just going to say exactly yes, I agree with that, but you're speaking facts, so exactly, I agree with that. And
that's
then as corny as it sounds, like when you tell people nowadays to try harder, go at it, like as you said, do the reps, or like fail and all of that. It sounds like all of these, like because nowadays there's like all of these motivational videos, or like people trying to like sell you a course to how to become a billionaire, and using the same actual sentences as we are saying right here. It might kind of like cancel out in some people's mind that, okay, we're just trying to make it sound difficult, even though it isn't. But it like, if you want to do like cool shit, like you gotta do the reps. You gotta build this, right? You gotta fail and debug and then
just like these muscles, right?
To develop that. I think you gotta start another separate channel for bodybuilding stuff for bug bounty hunters.
Well, I know you said you hit the gym right before this episode, so maybe you and I will do a gym episode in Vegas or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Hopefully.
So you said, okay. So you met this guy, and he really helped you with a foundation of, okay, so we're working on SQL injection, and then we're switching over to reverse engineering for a couple hours, and we're really kind of getting a great foundation in place. And so I'm curious, as this foundation starts going in place, one, how are you feeling as you're building all this, right? Because you're not actively out there like popping exploits and stuff like that. You're building a lot of this foundation. So are you feeling antsy, or are you just kind of like, you're like, maybe this isn't the right path? Or are you kind of trusting that this is the right path, and just kind of being really interested in the stuff that you're learning at the time?
This is a question for at the time, right?
Yeah,
back in the
time.
day, right?
Yep.
As I was doing it, So I didn't have any perspective of what I'm going to do. Like, I didn't think there would be a job, even there is like a cybersecurity job, a vulnerability, nothing. I just wanted to get like shells, just wanted to like get the rush when you exploit something, and also the pause between these rushes that you're spending time to find a bug. So that pause kind of like would build that expectation. And then when you like satisfy the expectation of, okay, I hit it now, I've got a shell, I popped the calc, I popped MS Paint, whatever. Like I just wanted to do it. I didn't have any idea. Like, it's addicting. And then at the time, so one might ask, like, okay, then how would you were like making a living? Like, you couldn't just like stay at home and just do this. So I had like my developer gig, and then I would just like try to like make money out of that. And then I tell you, like 24/7, like I would just get like the client project done or whatever. And the good thing with the development jobs, like as I told you, like you had like, I don't know, like 10 backends, and you just like change the front ends, whatever. And then sometimes like minor modifications in order to like sell that kind of like a CMS or whatever the product you had at the time. And then, I would just like be like, my whole work like was just that, just to reverse engineer or do source code review and just find bugs. And I would just go on like any kind of like a website that would say, okay, this is a trial of our product. This is a demo of this, like open source, closed source, whatever. Just take it, just test out everything, like fail and just go into this like different rabbit holes. And I literally didn't, like, I kid you not, like I would just install the software and I'd be like, okay, what am I going to do next? Okay. What am I even going, look, attack surface was a joke. I didn't know what an attack surface was. I couldn't even like I would just install it and I'd be like, okay, I'm just gonna interact with this thing and then understand if shit can go wrong at a certain point.
Exactly.
Like, just like that, right? And then as I was doing this and then just reading and all of that, and kind of like, it goes kind of like those, like, it's like the classic classic background story of everyone else. Like they started from somewhere, they did their time, they paid their, I don't know, paid their dues or whatever.
Yeah,
exactly. And then after a while,
yeah.
they exactly, and then they build it up. I did, and then after a point, like your skills just get sharper and sharper at the time. And then I remember like I tell you, like it was 24/7. Like I would just like work until like 12 or 1 p.m. and I would just sleep until like 6, 7, and I would just wake up, same screen, just looking at, reversing, testing.
You love it, right? I mean, I think one of the common themes that we see is in the beginning you didn't know that this was a job, right? And I think that's one of I love bug bounty. Like bug bounty is one of the most amazing things in my life for sure. But I do think that there's been a con to bug bounty a little bit, which is people focus on the bounty, right? People focus on my delimiter for success with learning hacking is whether or not I'm getting bounties or not. And that's not how it's supposed to be, right? You need to love hacking. You need to love the process of growing and hacking. You need to love the process of, seeing this piece of software and just like understanding how it works and understanding its little nuances that you can break that. And not to say that people can't just do bug bounty as a job. People can do bug bounty as a job. And if you're not super mega passionate about it, I'm not trying to like gatekeep bug bounty from you. But I think to get to this level where you're like finding super crazy stuff and you're just absolutely loving your job, like there has to be that focus on hacking as a passion first, and then you're like, oh wait, this can be a job too. So I always try to tell people to release that whole expectation of bounty in the beginning and just more focus on like hacking as an art and as a craft, right?
You got a point there, and let's say, let me also mention this, right? So at the time when I was doing it, and a lot of other people, the whole thing was like a dark path that you didn't know where you're going. And like you didn't have like a centralized place with all the attack surfaces and all the attack lists and all the kind of like the what's available or whatever. It was kind of like a dark path, and we're just like going, and then you try to like light up the whole like different alleys and different like the streets and whatever on this path just slowly. But nowadays, I don't know if what's it called in like what's the right term, but it's like when you have a huge amount of information available now, and then when you want to start, you kind of get shocked, right? You get scared. You're like, there's so much to learn. Like you're like exactly. You get overloaded. And you're like, oh my god, like I don't know if I want to start this because it's too much. Like how am I supposed to like learn all of this? But which adds a different kind of difficulty to today's people that like are starting it or have started it, right? Back in the day, different problems. Now different problems, right? And then you have a lot of competitors and like different kind of stuff adds up to it as well. I think you just start, right? Just keep doing it. Just learn as you go. Just learn. Don't think about all the what's available. Just try to learn it slowly, like building it. Just like go with like a normal pace and going and just like build it up, and don't get distracted a lot. And then I don't know how to put it. I think at a certain point I'm just keep repeating myself.
Well, I think you're repeating yourself because this is a part of the process, is just going down that pathway and like you said, figuring out as you go. And I love that you acknowledged that there's difficulties to modern day education and bug bounty too, because I think that's a really fair assessment of it, is that, back in the day we had too little information, but now we've got too much information, and it's hard to balance those two, right? And so the only way to balance those two is get out there and do it. And so that's why I always talk about, I've got pinned to my Twitter profile sort of like a blueprint for how to get started in bug bounty. And essentially what I say is, in the beginning, do 80% learning, 20% hacking. And then you move up to 60% learning, 40% hacking, and then it's 60% hacking, 40% learning, right? But notice how there's always some hacking involved in there. You have to be out there actually doing the hacking for you to get reps. So I think that's really important. So, okay, so that's a little bit of your background. You kind of started with this really rigorous, training, and you were doing it for the passion of it, and you didn't even know that this could turn into a job. But so when did that web development scale out, and when did you start working as an offensive security expert or vulnerability research?
Yep. So I was just like doing this just doing it for myself, just like trying to exploit stuff and just like having my exploit Python files in my like local drive and just like looking at them and feeling like I rule the world or whatever. And just like just getting high on that. And then after like going again and again and again, just like for exploiting different kind of stuff, at a certain point I started like interacting with the kind of like other people, and then like hearing about, okay, like there's a thing like cybersecurity roles, like pen tester roles and all of that. And so it wasn't like vulnerability researcher or whatever back then. It's just, we had this only one title back in the day, pen tester. Are you a pen tester or not? Yeah. That's it. Yeah. So I started like a pen tester, and then just like a normal stuff, like, I don't know, attacking Active Directory, different kind of like attacking Active Directory, network scanning, like vulnerability scanning, different kind of tools, this and that, and then just like what like usual people do, nothing fancy, just like. But I always try to like do like that extra mile. I would just like bring, even though I don't recommend it to people, like this doesn't sound right to people, and people just prohibits doing this. But I did it back in the time because I didn't do it for the companies that I work for. I just did it for myself. I just like bring work home and just trying to go that extra mile to like find something fascinating or find something interesting. If it was just like a network pen test, maybe I can find some sort of a custom software that I could like find like a heap overflow in it, and then I just like craft an exploit for it. How hard could it be? It's a Windows XP. It's not like a Windows 11 or whatever, which is like all the mitigations, or you like, even there's ways to this, but it was way easier, right? I would just try to like go that extra mile to try to apply I would make shit up. Like I would like make targets up. Like my boss would have told me, okay, just test this software and that software and that software. That's what we're being paid for, right? You can test these as well, but we're not getting paid for. I was like, okay, I want to test those as well. I'll just bring it home. Yeah. I'll just like work on them and all of that. And then
that's great. Yeah, I mean that was sort of the same sort of thing that I had, which was like, okay, first you get in that pen tester role, right? And then the next step is like master that and like get it so that you can get very satisfactory results quickly. Let's say it's a 40-hour test. You're popping everything and getting it done in like 20 hours, right? And then that extra 20 hours you've got is like additional value add to the client. Okay, and by the way, here's a 0 day in this library you're using, or like, here's that's perfect, man. And that's exactly what I did as well. I think that's a really good takeaway, is like, go the extra mile on these engagements. But I think a lot of people try to skip that first step, which is first master what you're supposed to do, master that initial pen test where you can get the results, that you need for the client quickly. And then you've got that margin either at work or, like you said, at home, to go the extra mile and build out these extra exploits and apply the knowledge that you're getting through your own study to these targets that you're working on. That's awesome, man. Okay, cool. So then you're in that pen testing environment, you're growing, and then do you stay as a pen tester long term, or are you switching into vulnerability research? And where does Pwn2Own fit into this whole equation?
Yeah. So I was just like doing like these pen tester roles, and then just like going through the ranks. I don't know, like a junior, senior, media, whatever, right? Just going up, and then I. At the same time that I was like learning all of these, like bug bounty was being like promoted a lot and all that, and people were getting more into bug bounty, even though there were people doing it way back. Like people were doing it like exactly the same day like HackerOne was launched, and then people were doing it like all of that, but it was getting like more promoted and like all of that. And then I've kind of started trying it, and then I wasn't good at it. I did make some money. I did make money. I did make some money, and then like I was just like targeting different kind of things. And the good thing, to be honest, maybe if I would have like pursued it back then, like it would have been better instead of like giving up on it, because people were there wasn't much automation back there as is today. So if you were clever enough to make some sort of automation back in the day, you would be like drowning in money. And but I kind of like I didn't click with the whole concept. I wasn't, probably because I wasn't like pretty much good at it, but I did make some money. I was like reporting to Microsoft and all of that. And then, which was good. I was like making good money. Microsoft was paying a lot of money back in the day, I think, compared to today, maybe. I don't know. But what happened was, to answer your question, one day, as I was like any other day, that I was just like watch 5 or 6 conference videos from different kind of things that would come up to try to like find my own niche or whatever. I saw a video of a Hack in the Box conference from Steven Seeley. I think you know him.
Yeah, classic.
I saw one of his talks, and when I saw it, like it was like so fascinating to me. I was like, I've got to do exactly what this guy does. And I've like started like Googling his name, reading whatever he wrote, and then get familiar with his blog and all of that, reading all of his exploits and all of that. And then one thing that I learned as I was like doing all of this stuff was trying to reproduce other people's work.
Very important.
I can't stress how important it is today, even though it's easier today to do it, but I don't think much people are doing it. Like, you have like Docker images that people will set up 10 minutes after the CV comes up. You can just do like a Docker start, and then you have the already vulnerable image set up, port exposed. You have a sample of the payload, and then you can just like fire it and test it, right? And then people like start like making all like nuclei stuff and like just like a spray through the whole internet or whatever, right? And a lot of other stuff that I'm not aware of, right? That's just the thing that I know. But back in the day, right, people would just like publish the exploit, and then people weren't doing like end-day analysis and all of that. But to be honest, nobody told me to do it. I was just thinking, okay, I want to do exactly what a Steven Seeley does, right? I want to get to his level, even though he's like way farther like that I can even look at, right? He's just like on like this whole like a different mountain. And then I was like, okay, maybe the best thing is, if I read his blogs and I don't understand it, I would just write down everything that I don't understand, even from a simple word that says, I don't know, something like, I don't know, whatever. Just write it down, and then just like start like slowly building up my foundation to understand his blogs. And then let's install the same software. Let's try to find the same bug. Let's just try to do the same thing as he did and keep failing at it, and just keep doing it and keep doing it. I've tried to reproduce as much as advisories and exploits that he had published. And then I've kind of like, I was feeling that I'm stepping in the same shoe as he has. I was just like stepping in the same shoe. And then I've started like developing that kind of like intuition, like just like close, not exactly, just close, like just trying to like be like him, right? A well-known like experienced expert vulnerability researcher who has done anything you could think of. Like back in the day, he was like making heap exploitation plugins to do like crazier stuff. So he's not just like this like high level guy who's only doing like this kind of like one area. He has done it, everything you can think of. He has done like low level exploitation, hardware, embedded, high level stuff, like exotic architecture, whatever you could think of, right? He has done it. He became, and he is still to this day, my role model. Even on my blog, if you go there, like there's like an about page on top, I put his name saying like this is one of the guys who had like direct like impact on what I am today, even if I am anything today. But basically I've kind of like started following his path, just going after what he did, and all the things that I just said before.
That's really great, dude, because
got to the point.
I think when you see somebody like that and they're inspiring, it's easy to be like, I want to be like that. And then like, just think about, get sort of fixated on the end goal. Like, wouldn't it be cool if I was like, a vulnerability researcher, if I like did this for a career or whatever. And then instead of focusing on that end goal, you start reverse engineering it. You say like, okay, well, in order to get to where he was, he did all these bugs. So I'm going to go back and, try to reproduce all these bugs and, make it so that I could have found these. So I like how you reverse engineered, Stephen Seeley as well. That's great. You apply that reverse engineering stuff to your role model there in that capacity as well. And that's great. So I guess where I want to go from here is I want to talk about, I want to do one more section in the, about you area and talk about your favorite bugs and how those have evolved over the years as you've, gained more capabilities. And then I kind of want to move into, your hacking methodology specifically and how you've been popping all these bugs on all these targets nowadays for Pwn2Own and even outside of that. And it's very source code analysis heavy. So I'm excited to talk about that as well. So start with what are your favorite bugs that you find a lot, and then kind of move into your hacking methodology.
Nowadays, the more stuff that I find that are like more interesting to me are more like memory corruption kind of stuff. Either it's like a vulnerability in like a kernel driver, mostly like Linux based, or is it like a embedded device or like a something else, right? More memory corruption oriented kind of stuff are like my like top favorite kind of stuff to do. And I also like but the things that I'm allowed or able to blog about is mostly like the high level stuff that I find, which are like either deserialization, path traversal, like your simple stuff like non-memory corruption kind of stuff, everything that all the other people are finding. I just love to explain code and just go through that and just like build it up from there. And it's exactly like projecting the way, at least I'm trying to. I'm basically copying. That's why I'm saying like maybe projecting is not the right word, but the work that Steven has been doing over years and years.
Yeah, because he's dabbled in both.
Puts like the source code. Exactly. He puts on the source code and then he just like starts building up saying, I don't know, the source is from here and then we reach the sink, right? We go to this whole path. And then I've tried to do the same thing as he was doing and he has been doing. But my favorite kind of stuff are like memory corruption stuff, but one of my also other favorite kind of things to do is like any .NET related vulnerabilities. And I'm not just saying that to promote my own training, even though I have a training people are like welcome to do.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And I'm so happy. I haven't announced it yet, but I'm so happy to say like I have like an August training coming up, and it has been like filled up.
No
right?
way, dude! Congrats.
I've had. Thank you. Like it had like 25 seats, 24 seats have been filled up, and I'm so happy about it. And like it's crazy. Like when I started like making the training, I thought like you get whatever you want to start. You think like I don't know, like maybe nobody likes it or maybe nobody can, but like if you build it, they'll show up or whatever.
Exactly.
And then I try to like give it as a workshop, different places, and just like going to different countries and different conferences and doing it. And then people were nice enough to post like feedbacks and stuff, and that feedback helped on promoting the training for other people to show up. And then I've had like 15 registrations, 15 or 14 registrations until like I don't know 3 weeks ago or something, 2 weeks ago. And then after I published, I dropped like three exploits at the same time, 3 blog posts with a privilege escalation. After I dropped those 3 blog posts saying that I'm doing this to promote my training, and then people like started like 13 other people signed up for the training.
Yeah, man,
which was
that's perfect.
Which was
so you found
really
a nice
cool
way to get publicity to that, and you found a way to add value to the community. So you drop this blog post, everyone's reading through this, they're like, wow, this rocks. And then you've got, let me check out this guy and his course. So that's really exciting, man. And this pod is going to drop soon. So you need to get another class that people can sign up for, or maybe like a wait list or something, because I'm sure a lot of the listeners to this podcast would love to sign up and check out this class, especially if you want to get into this a little bit deeper realm, right? Like a lot of the stuff that we talk about here is some, web related vulnerabilities and stuff like that. But one of the things we stress all the time is if you can get your hands on source code, man, that is so sweet. Like if there's any possibility of you remotely being able to get your hands on source code, it's amazing. And with .NET stuff, that's more and more possible. And so, yeah, definitely check out this course if you're interested. We'll link it down in this description. And so I guess when you're dealing with .NET stuff, how do you approach that? Give us a little bit of insight into your methodology for .NET.
So what I do is no magic. Like I just do the same thing as many other people have been doing for years and years and years. There is, to be honest with you, like there isn't much of a secret sauce. It's just doing the same people do, but I don't do it like once. I do it 1,000 times, and then out of those 1,000 times, maybe 5 targets are vulnerable, and then people only see the end result of the blog post coming up, right? But I just like keep doing the same thing, and then I'll start like picking up things. With .NET, basically you'll after you like acquire the software, whatever that you think worth investigating, either it's a well-known, I don't know, like if it's like well-known software such as like Exchange or SharePoint or like a SolarWinds product, right? Like these are like well-known products. You get them, you acquire them, and then you install the software, and then you start to map out the attack surface. But in order to map out the attack surface, you need to understand like you're working with like a .NET target. The good thing with .NET is when you can decompile .NET and get almost like the exact code that was written initially.
I love that,
to like decompile it, which is amazing. Like Java does, like you can like decompile it. Given that it hasn't been like I don't know, like minified or obfuscated, which is sometimes a problem, but there are ways for that as well.
So what are you using for that? Did you so like are you using .peek or?
So there are a lot of softwares that you can use. You can use .peek, Rider from JetBrains. You can use ILSpy, dnSpy, Visual Studio. You can use all of those. And I sometimes switch between them. Sometimes for some reason one of them doesn't work, and you're like, okay, let me try the other one or whatever.
Do you have a preference that's your first go-to?
I usually go with the most generic one people use, dnSpy. That's like that's my favorite. But I know a lot of experts who use like Visual Studio. It's a bit like it takes just like if you haven't done it before, it maybe takes you like an hour to figure out how to do it, but just the first time. But you can use like Visual Studio too. But I use like usually dnSpy has always worked for me. The latest version of dnSpy is called dnSpyEx because dnSpy was abandoned. dnSpyEx. And then it's funny, on a non-related kind of thing, the guy who's been developing dnSpyEx for the last like I think 4 years, maybe 5 years, he's like this like 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid.
No way.
He's like a self-taught .NET developer. His name is his handle is ElectroKill, if I'm not wrong, and is this like genius kind of dude who's like been adding a lot of features to the project and just taking the project by his own. People commit, but the majority of the like crucial commits are from him. Things that are like evolved around the engine.
Love people like that do that massive service to the community. And when you said dnSpy, I went to the old repo and I was like, man, this hasn't been touched in like 4 years. I'm kind of surprised you're still using this, but it makes sense that with dnSpyEx, and that's EX by the way. I searched dnSpy just the letter X and it didn't come up. So dnSpyEx.
EX,
very cool. Yeah, and I know that Joel is a little bit more of a fan of .peek and that whole family of products over there. But I think it's definitely worthwhile to switch between the two because there are some weird things sometimes where one will reverse it and the other one won't. And I've seen this in Java plenty of times as well because there's so many Java decompilers as well.
Yeah, so usually like to giving out some pointers to people. This is well known. This is like a couple of like well-known things. This is not something that I only know, or like a secret knowledge or whatever. But with .NET, sometimes you try to like debug a process, and then for some reason, either you're not like you attach to the process, and then you like start putting breakpoints, and then in dnSpy or whatever kind of thing that you're using, and then the breakpoints won't be set. The software kind of like gives you such an error, saying that I can't set a breakpoint here, or you do set a breakpoint on different places, and then you go and in these like debuggers, right? Whenever your breakpoint hits, you can look at the local variables, global variables, whatever, right? It's called locals, and then you can start looking at them, but for some reason you get errors when you try to find their value. Like the software is looking into the memory to find the value or whatever, doing some sort of like things behind the scene, but you're not able to see it. That's because with .NET, at least, there can be different reasons, but one of the reasons, which happens like 70% of the time, is because the image. So we call .NET executables like images, right? We can call anything image, but this .NET executable or image, or it's like a DLL or whatever, it has been optimized. When you execute a .NET project, .NET runtime will optimize this DLLs and make them in a way that the debugger isn't able to like peek into the values. So you need to de-optimize this kind of like de-optimize this like the images, and in order to do so, there's a lot of like, not a lot, but there's like 3 or 4 blog posts out there that says like how to do it. Basically, you create a INI file next to the image name, and then you just like put some sort of a allow, optimize, and some other things in there, and you switch their values to disable them, and then you just like kill the process, or like restart the process, whatever, and then now the next time that it comes up, the image isn't optimized anymore, and then the debugger can easily breakpoint anywhere, work with multi-threaded applications, look at locals and everything, because .NET has a lot of concepts of optimization, global assembly cache, and some other stuff called NGen, next generation like NGen kind of like images, which basically all kind of it can be explained way more, but just like to put it like an end to the concept is the image has been optimized to run faster or run more efficient. So the debugger can't really work with it for some reason. You need to de-optimize it by putting the INI file next to it, and then you all sort it. Wow. You can start like debugging this.
Dude, that's target. Awesome. And I just want to shout out as well, just some of the copy that was in your sort of description for your course. It was like, hey guys, listen, this is 80% stuff that's out there and 20% stuff that's special to me. But you know, why should I pay for something that's 80% public and 20% not? You answer that question so eloquently, which is like this is how people learn about stuff, is getting all of these that 80% squared away, and there's a lot more than just that 80% out there. So if you're swimming in this sea of knowledge, right, and exactly. What you're doing with this course is giving them that 80% that they need, right? And I think that's absolutely pivotal. You know, when you come against this scenario, and you're just trying to set up a debugger on this thing, and you're like, I can't get it to set the breakpoints or whatever. That sort of knowledge is absolutely pivotal. So what you're paying for with this course is a way to lower, you know, to narrow in on the stuff that you need to be more high performing in a .NET environment, which I think is very high value. So yeah, I think that's really cool.
One thing. I apologize for jumping in, no. But one thing I want to say, I always say that like I kind of like do these like small workshops, which are like a couple of hours, which is like you know, like the sample of the training of what you will get when you come up for the training, to try to promote my training, you know, just like many other people have been doing for years, right? Just you gotta start like doing it, promote it yourself. And then I tell this to people a lot. Genuinely, the course is expensive, and I really don't recommend it if you're some sort of a student or like a solo person who's like making an earning by himself to come up to the course. Even though I would love saying that, oh, come up to my course, I'll teach you everything. Doesn't matter like who you are, but I genuinely say this, like, if you're an individual, it just doesn't add up spending that much money for a training, even though who doesn't love students? For me, it's generating money, right? But I think it's mostly preferred if you're working for an organization or a company, that the company is investing in these like employees, in these vulnerability researchers to come to somebody's training who's advertising that he can like take you from the basics to pretty advanced in .NET exploitation. For that company, the price makes sense, but for an individual or for a student, it doesn't. And I get a lot of emails from people who are students. I get a lot of people from email from people sending me emails saying like they're kind of like a student and can you give us a discount or whatever. And I have given them discounts for those people, and they've actually signed up. But I always say this, like, you can learn all of these by yourself. All of this yourself. Just don't think you have to come to my training or anybody's training. You can learn all of this yourself. That's how I learned it. You can just search the titles, go to the blogs. Each blog will at least will have one or two references to other blogs, and this just goes like a whole web of stuff, and then just like keep following it, and then after you like follow these kind of stuff, you next thing you know, like 8 months later, 9 months later, you have like a pretty good foundation now.
So this is just the fast track, you know, like if you're trying to get it quickly, if you're trying to understand exactly what you need. And I like also that it makes me trust. I haven't taken your course, and you know, we haven't done any deals on like, you know, promoting your course for this podcast, but I think I'm much more likely to take your course because of what you just explained about foundations and like, and how much this guy helped you and how much that was a part of your learning experience. Because what you want out of these fast track courses is not like solve all my problems. What you need is like, give me the tools that I need to solve my own problems, right? When I go up against these targets. So I think that's really encouraging. But I do want to push back a little bit on something you said, which was that this is for organizations, because I mean, how much does this course cost?
It costs like £3,000 British pounds, which
so $4,000 maybe.
You need to. And then you need to like, and then when people go start paying, they see the tax as well on the money, and then they're like, oh, this is too much money, which makes sense. And
what I wanted to say with this, so sorry to interrupt, but what I wanted to say with this was like, if you're a bug bounty hunter and you're just a solo bug bounty hunter, right? I do this full time. I would have no qualms paying for this course out of my own company, you know, my own earnings, right? Because I know that if I use the techniques in this course, and I apply this and I get just one RCE out of this on some of these more enterprise grade targets, that pays out much more than this $4,000 that I'm paying. And I have just walked away with all those skills, right? So not only do I get ROI, but I get the skills as well. So I just think, you know, from my perspective, I think bug bounty hunters are a little bit, I don't know. I think there's something about them that makes them want to go this route of like, you know, learn it all yourself, build all the tools yourself, that sort of thing. And I think that's excellent. But for the people that are getting frustrated with their bug bounty journey and they want to expedite the process a little bit, and then, you know, maybe pivot out of a job where they're unhappy or something like that, doing something like this, paying the money up front and then expecting to see an ROI, I think is a great move. And a move that I don't see enough people do, invest in their own education. So.
Yeah, like 4 days, 32 hours, like you understand like 90%, 95% of what you need. Like, and
it's a long course, dude.
In the training, it is a long course, and like all the targets are like real world softwares that I've like exploited or like other people have exploited. Awesome. I'll bring it in the class. We'll have set it up, and then we'll just go through the whole chain. Like a lot of bugs, more than like 25 bugs, a lot of chains, and like all the areas, like you like fully understand all the serializers that are out there for .NET, not just like running WhatsUp serial and then if it fails, whatever, actually being able to like craft chains, gadget chains, and like making exploit chains and all of that, and going through that. It to be honest, like it is pretty much, as I said, valuable. And I understand you saying like bug bounty hunters. I don't know if it's the right word to use, but might have the luxury to be able to afford such trainings to get that ROI. But again, and I love students. Who doesn't love students? I love anybody who wants to sign up. I'm happy to. I'm making a living. I will do my part to give the training, and I'm also getting the money out of it. But if you're a person watching this, listening to this, whatever, right? If you open the website, because back in the day, this is what happened to me, and I feel for these people, right? Because this happened to me. You open up the website, you see the syllabus, you see the guy who's teaching it. You're like, oh, okay. You need to get convinced if the guy knows his shit, right? And then you're like, okay, he might know something, right? I believe he knows something. I want to go to his training. Sounds interesting, but this is too much money. I can't afford it. Don't let that stop you from pursuing .NET exploitation. Just do it. Like, just copy paste the syllabuses that I have and just keep searching. You have a problem, you don't understand it. I put my email out there. Just copy paste it, send an email saying, can you give me some references that I want to understand this topic or that topic? I'm happy to do so. Man. I don't want to hold it back because you're not taking out anything from me. It is something that I learned from other people as well. I'm just giving you references to go learn it. It will take me 5 minutes to give you that link to go learn it. And people have, and I've said, this is not the first time I'm saying this. I've said it in like different like classes and conferences that I've been to, and this has actually impacted people. And they have been writing me emails saying, oh, we want to understand like how to exploit this kind of serializer that has been implemented in .NET. We can't afford the training. Can you give us some references on places that we can go read about this, whatever, right? And I've like sent them links. I'm happy to.
That's a great offer.
Don't let that to stop you. You can do it absolutely. Like 9 months, 8 months, 1 year. If you do it constantly, you do it like that. Like it's nothing. It's easy. It's not black magic. It's not like secret knowledge. I've learned that by Googling. You can do it too. That's
a great offer, man. I think that, you know, you kind of open up the floodgates a little bit there. So be careful, because what'll end up happening is you'll start getting, you know, people messaging you.
It's fine, to be honest.
That's great. Well, hey, it's man, fine. Take advantage of this offer while it lasts with him, because you know, at some point he's going to get to the point where he can't reply to all of them. So while he's offering this, take advantage of it. Okay. So
come on in.
So Sina, I want to move over to a topic that you sort of mentioned before, and then something you also have in the notes saying that a debugger is super important to you. And I have a little confession to make here on the pod. I have not set up a debugger on, like an active debugger on a target that I've worked on before. I've done so much, white box, source code review, that sort of thing. But it's always been me looking at the code, me crafting an exploit, me sending it in, and then being like, why the frick isn't this working? And not having any introspection into it. And when I think about the luxury of having a debugger, I'm like, oh man, that would make this process so much easier. So for those of us that haven't actually had that experience before, can you talk a little bit about what that adds to you, and then how, just at a high level, how difficult it is to set it up in various environments, like a Java environment or a .NET environment?
That's actually a really good question. Even I was the same back in the day. I would like look at the source code if it was like a web app, and I'd be like, okay, this is a function. It's taking two input arguments from the query string, or maybe the post body or whatever, or maybe a header. I can see it clearly in this code, and then it's I don't know, passing it to like a SQL query without sanitization. Okay, I understand it. I just need to hit this endpoint with my prep suite or whatever, and provide those arguments, and then I will hit it, right? And most of the times that works, right?
Yeah.
But at a certain point in time, you come across applications which are far more complicated, and then for some reason you're trying to send those parameters or whatever. Either it's a TCP server which has been written in C++ that you need GDB to attach to. It's a compiled binary, or it's a .NET target which you need to attach dnSpy to it, or it's like a Java target which you need to attach like its own debugger to it. Either it's I don't know, like you can use like JetBrains products or any kind of other product you want to use to debug it. And then for some reason you're not hitting that endpoint. The web suite is, I don't know, you're giving like a 404 or an unauthorized or whatever. If you're doing only source code review and it's like a huge application, you might think, why doesn't it work? Should I move on? Maybe the code is dead or whatever, or maybe something. You don't know that thing, right?
Somebody's
That's
inside my brain.
You don't know the thing.
That's exactly what I say in my brain. I'm like, why isn't this working? I can see the source code. Like,
exactly. You say like, I'm seeing it, like either it's in my decompiler or disassembler or whatever. I'm seeing it. Like, why isn't it being hit? But when you attach a debugger to that, like to that target, if it's say like a Java target, you use like many debuggers for Java, but like I usually use like JetBrains product for Java targets. You attach to it, and then you understand, okay, there is a filter or an interceptor or a middleware which is like way before this route gets called, and that's looking for a certain header that I'm not sending it. And that's why, for example, I'm not reaching the sink to reaching this function or whatever. That helps. Or sometimes you want to bypass mitigations and you want to keep testing for it, or fuzz the behavior or whatever. When you attach a debugger, you can, in most of these debuggers, you can start writing expressions, right? You can write Java code or .NET code, or like peek into the memory or change stuff, and then call a function again and again and again, and then that kind of like speeds up your analysis and your understanding.
I'd say so.
Exactly, and which is perfect. I've actually started with debuggers, like with like GDB. I was just mostly debugging like low level stuff, just like picking into the memory, no extension, no Jeff, no PwnDBG or PwnBag, whatever you want to call it, no WinDBG or WinBag, whatever. None of those. I was just like using like pure like classic GDB for embedded exploitation, most of that. And then I was just as I was like doing more like web app and like .NET Java, I was like setting up PHP debuggers, .NET debuggers, Java debuggers, and all of that. And then setting up a debugger helps a lot. It is painful sometimes, and people choose to move on. I have chose to move on sometimes, but as I grew, I've learned to don't move on, and whatever it takes, just have it set up. I kid you not, in some of the Pwn2Own targets that we worked on, there were some like exotic architectures that they don't have. It's called an RTOS, like a real-time operating system. So it's not like a Linux or whatever that you can get a shell and then you can upload a debugger or whatever, right? It's a real-time operating system, and you need to, when you want to debug stuff, you gotta like open up the device and like attach some sort of like a physical device and all of that, and just like it's pretty painful. And then when you go through that, you're like, okay, that takes like 10 hours. How long is going to take me to like set up this Java debugger? Okay, 1 hour, 2 hours. Let's just do it, right? It works.
So okay, I'm sold. Yeah. I'm sold. You sold me on the debugger thing. That's great. But the next thing is kind of what I want to ask about is like, how does this work with various targets, right? Because you're attacking these IoT devices. You don't have access to the firmware specifically. You don't necessarily have access to this, Docker container of the operating system or anything like that, and you want to get one of these things set up. How do you get that set up? And then also, in a scenario where you're dealing with like a .NET application or whatever that has like its own Docker image or something like that, how are you reaching into that Docker image and setting up this debugger versus like something in the IoT world where you've got like a physical device that you don't have an image for?
Okay. I think I understand the question. Please try to jump in if it wasn't the right answer, or if you felt like this is not the answer to your question. most of the time, I don't know if it's like a Java target, if it's on a Windows or a Linux, you need to understand how the Java process is being started, and then you can like provide arguments to that command that's starting the Java process. And then when you provide arguments to it, you can enable like Java debug wire protocol like JDWT or like other stuff to enable debugging, which exposes a debugging service that you can connect to with your debugger. Most debuggers allow remote debugging. Okay. So that's what Java.
So for Java, let me just echo this back to you so I can make sure that I understand it.
Yeah.
For Java, let's say we've got a Docker container. It spins up this Java app or whatever with the jar file. You find whatever like .sh file or whatever that's being run that triggers that Java command. Java-jar whatever, right? And then you modify that file
usually,
and you say, okay, now I'm going to turn on debugging, and then maybe you got to open the port in Docker or whatever, and then you can connect to that debugging port via your debugger, and it will allow you to just jump right in and control that flow of the application.
Yeah, exactly. You got it right. You have this Docker image. You will try to get a shell on the Docker image, modify it in some sort of a way to enable like some sort of arguments to the Java starter command or whatever bash script or whatever it is in order to enable debugging. That's with Java. Usually that's the trick, right? There are some special cases too, but usually that's the way to do it. As far as my knowledge goes. Can you hear me right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So for like something like .NET, I imagine it's a little different. Are you like loading up a DLL or something like that? Or how are you addressing that?
Yeah, so with .NET, you just like you have different kind of debuggers, but with dnSpy, usually what happens is you use dnSpy dnSpy has like a debugger feature. You can attach to processes or launch a process. When you launch a process, you can start immediately debugging from the program start. When you attach to a process, you attach to its current state, whatever it is at the time that you're attaching to it, and then you attach to it, and then you can start debugging. But sometimes when you start debugging that target process in .NET, you start saying, okay, my breakpoints are not even hit. So you need to do the optimization trick that I told you about, that you just place an INI file next to it with some sort of a value, and then you just restart the process, and then you attach it again. There are some special cases too, but these are the usual things that happen. With IoT stuff, like embedded stuff, most of the times, if it's a device which is like Linux based, has like an operating system or whatever, you want to like push GDB to the device. So you have like a statically compiled GDB client or a GDB server. You push it to the device, you upload it in some sort of a way, considering you already gained a shell on the device, because with IoT stuff, when you get the device, first you need to acquire an initial shell on the device.
Yeah. So let me ask about that process really quickly. So I also want to go back to the .NET thing for a second, because I would like to ask about remote debugging with .NET, because in the scenario that you had, we're in the same environment, we can just attach to the process or whatever. But if we're doing like, let's say we're running this .NET application in like a different environment, is there some way to connect from a remote context for that?
As far as I know, this is as far as my knowledge goes. I don't know if it's possible to debug a .NET process remotely. With Java, it exposes a port that you can connect to it remotely. So basically, it runs a listener. But with .NET, as far as I know, dnSpy attaches to a process and uses Windows debugging APIs and MS Corelib, which is Microsoft library for .NET, like CLR, the common language runtime. These are like .NET specific technologies and engines, and uses those to debug into that process, to attach to that process to debug it. But I haven't heard about somebody debugging a .NET process remotely.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so moving to the IoT side then. When you're approaching this hardware target for like an event or whatever, obviously you got to get this initial shell to get, your debugger set up and on it, right? So I feel like there's only two approaches to this. There's like hardware hacking techniques, right? Where you've got your UART, you've got your JTAG, you've got, glitching related stuff, that sort of thing. Or you got to go black box and you got to try to pop it without actually, having the source code or whatever. I guess there's one third option as well, which is like if you can get your hand on the firmware then you can sort of be white box, but still not have a debugger. What is your go-to flow with that? And how do you address all of these three possibilities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in order to like start researching like a IoT device, basically first you need to like get the device. After you got the device, you want to interface with the device, right? You want to get a shell on it, assuming it's a Linux-based system, not some sort of a RTOS or whatever. And then you can use like some sort of like a UART, JTAG, whatever to interface with the device. Once you do interface with the device, if it has like some sort of a console, you try to like, usually after the console you have unlimited shell, like you have like a root shell or whatever, and you want to get around it. But basically what I'm answering is the usual answer, right? There can be different scenarios, special cases as well, which happen often, but in order to bypass that kind of like a console, either you guess the password or you can guess the password or whatever. Sometimes the password has been published by someone else or whatever. It's like maybe like a root 123 or a vendor name or whatever. And then if you can't get around it, then you can like use glitching. Sometimes glitching helps. Almost all the time glitching works. Glitching is super powerful. If you master it, like the sky's the limit. And then you can like use like glitching to get around that protected shell. If you do, that's one way. Sometimes the firmware is available on the vendor website. You can just get the firmware, backdoor the firmware, and install the firmware on the device and just get a shell. That's it, right? Sometimes it can happen. Sometimes you just gotta like YOLO it, and then you're like, okay, I just take the chip off and then just read the chip, and then write to the chip, backdoor the firmware or whatever, repack it, and then just put the chip back. But you need to like desolder, like soldering, like all that. And sometimes the chip on the device is not like a simple normal flash chip or whatever. It's like an eMMC or a BGA, which you usually see them in phones. So when you like desolder or like take it out, you need to know how to do reballing, which not anyone can do reballing, right? Exactly. You gotta have like steady hands and like do a clean job. Sometimes there is some sort of wiggle room for you to like mess up just a bit. You don't need to be perfect in doing it, but sometimes which I did actually for Pwn2Own 2024. Pwn2Own Japan, I had to. We were targeting these infotainment systems, which are like infotainment for cars, and then most of the times you couldn't actually find like. You had to like desolder it. At least for me, like for a lot of them, I had to desolder them. And then the device is so expensive, like, I don't know, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. You can't just buy two or whatever. So you need to like desolder it, and you need to do no reballing to put the chip back, and then to use your shell or whatever to go on the device and start working on it. But sky's the limit, as I said, sometimes. And then maybe sometimes even you don't need to make it more difficult. Maybe sometimes black box, you can find a command injection in the application and you just get a root shell. That's it, right? So maybe try to go with the easier approaches.
So man, that's a $2,000 device. I know that I've only had one or two experiences, hacking an IoT device where I actually have to like pull the chip off, get it read, pull the firmware, that sort of thing. But in the first time I did it, I was literally like, I was shaking, and this is like a $60 device that they gave me for free, and so do you guys have to buy your own devices for these competitions, or are they like comping you for the devices at all afterwards if you find a valid bug?
No, usually with 99% of the targets, you need to buy them yourself. And then sometimes the device is only available in like US, and like you're in like another like continent or something. Jeez. And then the device is only sold in US. So goes to your imagination. You gotta hack the
system to even get your hands on the device.
How difficult it is to get the product to you. And it gets difficult, but worth mentioning for like targets like Tesla, right? So you want to target Tesla, right? If you're a well-known researcher or you have done Tesla exploits before for Zero Day Initiative Pwn2Own competition, Pwn2Own will provide you with not a car. They don't send you the car.
All right, extra incentive here.
Not the car, but they will send you the correct ECUs that you need, the computer in the car, the ECUs that you need that are part of the attack surface that are accepted. So you need to like wire the ECUs and whatever, and make sure when you like plug it into your outlet, you don't burn the ECU or whatever. Then you can like set it up and then just like start finding bugs on it. But you need to, like, that's not for someone who just wants to come to Pwn2Own like the first day and then they will give him like ECUs or whatever, or give him or her whatever. It depends on that kind of like relationship that you have with the organizers, and Tesla knows you and all of that kind of stuff.
That's
the answer
that's
is
crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's nuts. And I want to ask, so, you know, this is a high risk environment for you. You're buying these things. I know that I burned through 4 chips, I think, the first time I was trying to pull a chip out, you know, just from lack of experience. And I did better afterwards. You know, I bought, I think, like 10 of the devices or whatever, and I was able to finally get it consistently. But you know, when you're going into it, it's a pretty high investment environment. So how much of the time would you say that you're dealing with I can just connect to UART or JTAG and get a shell, versus I have to pull the firmware via, you know, pulling the chip, the eMMC chip, and getting it into a reader and getting it to read, versus like a black box approach versus like firmware? Like what is the distribution of those for? What is most common and what is least common? Let me think how to. You're asking pretty solid questions. That's why you're getting me hooked on it. So basically, like in the first, like I think in the first like 12 hours or 10 hours, I'll kind of like exhaust all the possibilities that I can get a shell, except the black box kind of thing. Like in the like first 8 or 10 hours, I'll exhaust all the hardware related kind of techniques that I am aware of, that I can maybe launch against this target. 10 hour, is it enough? Isn't it enough? I don't know. It's just the way that I do it. And then after, if I don't get a shell in that like 10 hours, or I conclude that, okay, after this 10 hours, I've exhausted all the simple tricks that I could do. Now it doesn't work in the 10 hours. Either I'm gonna go black box, or maybe if I would have gone with black box, I would have found it in the first 5 minutes. Who knows? You don't know. That's just me. And then, or I would be like, okay, I will invest more time on glitching it at the right time, because you might say, why don't you always just take the chip off? Because sometimes the chip is encrypted and then the keys are are stored somewhere else, or like you need to talk to this like the system on chip SoC or whatever. Like or it's in an enclave or something, and it's not as easy as that. So sometimes you kind of like in the first 10 hours, I'll conclude either I want to go fault injection fully, or I would just want to like be like, okay, I can't do anything. I just got to black box it somehow and then find a way in. What's your intuition on the order, like of how often these work? So to like, you know, 50% of the time UART gives me a shell, or like, you know, what's your intuition on like how often these various techniques work?
The most often way that I use, I just use UART. I just use UART, and then I combine it with glitching, and then you get a shell. You definitely get a shell. At least for me, this is from. I don't represent like all the people who have done this kind of research. This is just my answer. For me, I just combine like I just connect with UART. Sometimes you have a shell, which you don't see it often happening, at least for Pwn2Own targets anymore. They're like high value targets. So they've been well tested, kind of. The easy doors have been closed, and then I just combine it with like glitching, and then most of the times they don't have any protection against glitching, and then I just that's my way in. That's my usual go-to, and then if that doesn't work, I'll go for the chip. If that doesn't work, black box.
Okay, gotcha. Wow, that's pretty cool. So a lot of times, you know, I think it might be worthwhile for me to invest a little bit into understanding how glitching works a little bit better, glitching and fault injection, because once you go that route with when you're pulling the chip off, I've never soldered a chip back on successfully, you know, and gotten it to read. That's very hard to do. And I think you need some more advanced equipment than what I've got as well. I've just got a, you know, beginner's hardware hacking setup here with like my hot air gun and you know, a shit ton of flux and that sort of thing. So that's really interesting to hear that fault injection and that sort of thing is a more common approach for you to get through there. Okay, cool. So now, we've gone through that path. We've got a shell on this device. Now we're getting a debugger set up live on that actual device. So you're kind of looking through the file system. You're trying to figure out what is starting the web interface or the whatever TCP interface or whatever, and then you're hooking into that. Is that the idea?
Yeah. So once you have a shell now, hopefully you'll start understanding what's available as the attack surface, right? The goal is getting remote code execution without user interaction on this device. And one other thing that you need to consider is sometimes sometimes Pwn2Own says, for example, these kind of services are out of question, right? We don't want, if an exploit is impacting these, we don't want it. Even though you are achieving remote code execution, but if it's targeting this service, we don't want it. Because this has kind of recently came up in Pwn2Own in the last few years. You wouldn't be dealing with it as much as it might sound, but it can happen that, for example, they say, I don't know, this routers on this router, any exploit on the UPnP service, universal plug and play, we don't want it because UPnPs are in these targets are not made by the vendor, they're made by the third party. Even though you might come and say, okay, doesn't matter, the vendor, the client is using it, right? But for some reason, they have their own reasons, right? And they're the organizers, so it's their rules, it's their game, right? They say we don't want it, right? They have their own reasons, and then so you might not want to be looking at it, but basically you find services, you exclude the ones that should be excluded, and then you start working on them to see if you can trigger anything remotely. Basically, what are the open ports? Sending a packet to each port. What does it do? What does it trigger? What service does it work with? You take the service, you try to. Is it decompilable? Do you decompile it, disassemble it, whatever? You set up a debugger, you attach to it, you start analyzing all what's available, you look for dangerous behaviors, you utilize your static analysis, you set up a fuzzer. It can be a black box fuzzer, a dumb fuzzer. You kind of develop your intuition on making a faster and better fuzzer. You make a snapshot based fuzzing with emulation. You make a grammar for your fuzzer. You make it better and better to start harvesting memory corruption vulnerabilities. And when I said that, I said the sentence maybe in 1 or 2 minutes, but having emulation set up in your local server or in your remote server to fuzz the same binary that was so you have this target which has I don't know 1 gig of RAM or whatever, 2 gigs of RAM or maybe megabytes, right? You have this device and you want to take which has its own tool chain, which has its own operating systems or whatever. You want to take this binary architecture, everything, right? Everything and it's not using the word saying everything on it is living in a harmony together. It's just some sort of a shit glued together, which is some sort of abomination that they've managed to just make it work. And then you just want to take one piece of that abomination and put it on the latest Linux version on your server. Of course, it's not going to work, right? Of course.
We pray, but it never happens.
You need to, usually never happens. So you need to set up your own emulation with QEMU or whatever you want to use, Unicorn, QEMU, Qiling, whatever these are all frameworks.
Okay, hold on. So you just so I've heard of QEMU, right? QEMU. But what were the other ones you mentioned? Unicorn, it's Unicorn engine. Same thing for emulation. The other one, it's written Qiling, which is Qiling. Okay. But as far as I know, the author of it, the guy who wrote it, says Qiling. Okay. So I'm saying Qiling as well. Okay. But it's Qiling, whatever. Yeah. Okay. I see it.
It's also it's a wrapper around Unicorn engine, which you can utilize to write emulation and even a snapshot based fuzzing.
Okay. That's great.
But the most powerful one that I recommend people to go after is using things just being able to use AFL with a combination of QEMU. If you can can like slap those together and then make it work. libAFL is a pretty powerful library written in Rust. So you got to know how to code in Rust. That kind of like that's kind of like a showstopper to a lot of people, but it's definitely recommended to be able to do it.
libAFL,
but
okay.
As far as you can, if you can get QEMU and AFL working, that's a decent option. There are better options too. Why not? But that's good enough.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
As far as modern knowledge goes.
So I'm diving into your whole flow here. Okay, I'm breaking apart the whole brain. So we get a hold of a shell somehow, likely via hardware hacking, but potentially via dumping the firmware and then finding a bug with just code review and then popping it and then getting a shell. Then we're taking all the binaries, taking all the different pieces of the environment, decompiling it if we can, whatever. We're getting our
disassemble it.
Exactly. Exactly. And then we go QEMU, and then we go or any of these other emulation softwares to get the correct environment, get the correct libraries or whatever. You
don't have to, but for fuzzing or like having your local setup for like because you why do you do it? I said before, you want to fuzz this abomination, but it's running on a device which is too slow.
Right.
So if you want to blast it with like 1 million requests, either it's gonna just like die or reboot or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you manage to take it out and put it on your own machine, which has like 128 gig of RAM or like, I don't know, a ton of cores, and it's like fast, all of that, you can just like, because I'm gonna say this, you're an expert, obviously, but I'm gonna say this for people who don't know, right? So you have this binary, which is imagine this device is a smart speaker, right? This smart speaker understands parsing MP3 files, right? And the way it works is the web server will receive an MP3 file and then will somehow pass this MP3 file to this executable, right?
Yeah.
You wanna fuzz this MP3 parser. You wanna because maybe you can find a memory corruption on this MP3 parser, so you can find a memory corruption on the speaker and get code execution that way, right?
I see.
Either you can go by uploading MP3 files to the web server, which the web server needs to process your HTTP request, take the MP3 file, save the MP3 file, pass the MP3 file to the MP3 parser. MP3 parser goes to the initialization phase to come up as a process, to allocate some memory, load its libraries and all of that, basically an active process, and then it opens the file, reads the file, starts parsing it. You went through, 9 steps to get to the parsing. But with a snapshot-based fuzzing, you can eliminate all of those 8 steps, take the file, and wrote a snapshot-based fuzzer. It's set. It can easily be set, but it's not easily done. You can set up your snapshot-based fuzzer to tell your snapshot-based fuzzer to, if this is the function which is this is a compiled binary. It's not source code.
Right.
It's compiled.
Right.
If at this function in this binary, this offsets in memory, right? If this function, this subroutine starts and it starts parsing this MP3 file and it ends here, and
just
there's 1,000 other functions before and after it, we just want to fuzz this. So I want you to change the flow of execution to here and go until here, and then when it reaches end here, you go back and then you revert the snapshot, revert the state of the memory to what it was. Right. Because you got to understand, either you're fuzzing a stateless or a stateful kind of like function. Because maybe when you're fuzzing this like a subroutine or whatever, maybe it changes something global. If this is what you want to fuzz, maybe it changes something above it, right? Above it, outside of your area. And then if that thing changes a lot, it causes a crash, which doesn't happen normally. It only happens in your local testing environments, right? Now I'm getting too technical, but
no. This is exactly what we need to know. So for these snapshot fuzzers, you're isolating a specific block of this, compiled code, right? So you're doing this, looking at assembly, and you're just essentially priming the environment that this is run in with the memory offsets, etc., and you're just running it over and over and over again with different inputs to see what's triggering the breakage. And now I want to ask you this, okay? Because my intuition as a web hacker would be shell the device, get the source code, look at the web interfaces or any of the external facing services, right? That would be my first thing. Whereas it seems to me that you use the external interfaces, like, okay, this web interface, and then you just skipped over the web interface and you're like, and the web interface calls this binary with the MP3. And now I'm going to grab this binary and fuzz the heck out of it. Is that because you are more interested in fuzzing as a hacker? Like that's the thing that you're interested in right now? Or is that because you've seen more success in this environment going after the lower level things, the lower level binaries, that sort of thing, in these sort of abomination of a setup of an IoT device, right? Versus going after the web interface stuff.
Yeah. So I just want to build up on what you said. The more it depends on you, but with Pwn2Own usually, the more difficult your exploit is, the better chance it's not going to get duped. Skipping the web server, I want to skip it, to be honest. For writing the snapshot-based fuzzer, to implement the snapshot-based fuzzer idea, I need to skip it. But while the fuzzer is done now, it's fuzzing, I have time now. I can spend it on looking at the web server, right? And and then I found the command injection in the first request of the login page, right? Obviously, it's going to be found by everyone, and obviously, it's going to be patched the last second. So I shouldn't stop at that. I should find as many bugs as possible, hoping that at least one of them will survive. It is a cruel kind of way to look at it, but that's just the fact. Because I'm ready until the last second of the competition. I'm ready. My full chain is ready. I have 3 bugs in my chain. I'm catching a flight. I'm in, I don't know, Vancouver, Toronto, whatever, right? I arrive 10 minutes before the competition, the vendor pushes the over-the-air update, just either killing one of the bugs in the chain or killing all the bugs in the chain. Or even sometimes what happened to me was they didn't kill any bugs. They just added a feature or added even a string, doesn't matter, added something to the binary that will shift the offsets in a way that my exploit will fail, right? Because my exploit is like using some sort of, I don't know, like a rob chain, and it's relying on some sort of offset or something aligned at some place.
You must be furious.
Right? So exactly, right? So that's why it gets
kind of
difficult.
Bull, actually. I feel like they should give you a version of the app, like, okay, the product as it exists at, July 15th at 11:57 a.m. Like as it exists in that moment, that is what you're going up against. But they don't do that. They say the most current patch of the device, and they can patch the device leading up to the competition day.
Yeah,
wow.
Exactly.
Is ZDI aware of this? I feel like ZDI would, because for HackerOne, when we have weird situations like this, it is a ZDI role. So for HackerOne, when we have situations like this, they intervene for us. They come in and they say, "Hi, all up. Listen, guys, clearly Justin had an RCE here because he just handed you your Etsy password file. Even though it got patched, he shelled it." So you still owe him a bounty, right? But maybe that isn't the case in the ZDI environment.
No, so all of these rules aren't made by the vendor. Right. It's made by ZDI, and the motto is we want to make this as real world as possible. We're targeting real world software at real time. It's not a done deal with the vendor. So the targets that you'll see in ZDI, they haven't accepted to be in Pwn2Own. They haven't chose to be in Pwn2Own. They've been brought to Pwn2Own. ZDI just puts up the targets. The vendor doesn't have a saying that we want this to be there or we don't want this to be there. They can take the initiative to approach ZDI saying,
very interesting.
Can we have our devices tested or whatever? Yeah, they can take the initiative to approach ZDI with putting something there, but they can't take the initiative coming saying, "Oh, we don't want our product to be tested." It's not their call to make. ZDI will test it. ZDI will purchase the bug if there is a bug, and will immediately report it to the vendor, whether the vendor likes it or not. Wow. So the ZDI wants to get the bugs fixed, whether the vendor wants to or not.
So is there any meta strategy when it comes to this then? Because I imagine the the people that are not actively involved in the competition, right? The person that doesn't have a rep in the Slack group or whatever, they are probably going to be more malicious towards the hackers, right? Where it's like, okay, we're looking at our logs, we're determining, okay, somebody's got a command injection over here, so we're going to patch that, now, and pushing updates over everything, versus the people that are actually in the Slack or whatever you got, however you guys do it, and interacting with the people that are actively researching their products. Is there any strategy there? Do you want to go for the
There is no communication. There is no communication with the zero. The only communication that you have is with the ZDI. Either so this is how it works. The researcher will you see the targets, you choose what you want to work on, you go work on it. If you have questions, you send it to ZDI. If you have any questions, is this service out of the scope? I have this question or assumption. Is this considered zero click? Is this considered zero interaction? Whatever. ZDI will, as fast as possible, as best as possible, will get back to you immediately, answering your question. And then whatever, right? You do that, and then you just find your bug, write your exploit chain, you show up at the competition, you execute it, and done. If it's done, you immediately, you and with ZDI employees will immediately, like 2 seconds later, you're sitting in a room talking to the vendor directly, like with like a webcam or whatever, right? You're talking to the vendor directly, and you're disclosing the bug to them with ZDI, right?
That's crazy.
And then you're getting the bug patched, right? So all the communications that you have is with ZDI. If there is anything to be made sure of, ZDI will contact the vendor kind of on behalf of you, kind of.
Wow. That's a very different world, man. Just to give you some introspection into the live hacking event, because we do want to kind of discuss the Pwn2Own versus HackerOne live hacking event sort of flow here. When we get the invite for the live hacking event, there's a scope call that happens, and that scope call is actually the person, the target, saying like, hey, this is what we want you to attack. This is what our bounties are. Here's what our bonuses are, whatever, right? And we're here to help whenever you have any questions, right? So then they spin up this Slack group, and they've got employees in there. They've got like channels where it's like, hey, if you got any questions about the architecture, if you have questions about like, are you seeing this SSRF hitting your internal servers or whatever, like that sort of thing. They've got all that set up and available for you to help the researcher as much as possible find the vulns within their system. And sometimes, some of these programs are more responsive than not, and vice versa. But at the end of the day, typically the program is on your side, and they are like trying to help you along the way as much as possible. And they want to pay out as many bounties as they can, because that means that their attack surface is getting more secured, and they want to get budget to do these events again, so that they can get more bounties and get more bugs submitted and get their attack surface more secure. And that's very different, it seems, from the Pwn2Own environment. And I imagine a lot of that is because of the fact that Pwn2Own competitions are not optional, for the vendor. It's not like optional. We're gonna hack your shit, and you have to allocate a resource to it. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So you said something good, right? You said that the vendor wants to spend the budget to make stuff secure and everything. Yeah. So that kind of like the goodwill, right, is in Pwn2Own as well. But the vendor is not spending money. It's ZDI's budget who's being spent on making these products safer. It's not like they're charging the vendor, or they're getting money from the vendor, or the vendor is providing budget to them. No, they can do a sponsorship, like Google is nice enough to show up and sponsor. Sometimes, I don't know, Samsung, I don't think Samsung is, like SinSinology, I'm sure they did. SinSinology is another company. That's like a network equipment, routers and stuff. Like SinSinology has been sponsored. Google and I think Tesla as well. They can sponsor, but I don't know if it's like a Lexmark printer or a TP-Link router. TP-Link is not paying any money, or or someone else. As far as I know, they're not paying any money, and the ZDI is spending the budget. And one might ask, then why is ZDI doing such a thing? Like, is it just doing it for?
What's their incentive?
That's it. So the goodwill, right? So ZDI is a organization, part of Trend Micro, right? So it's called Trend Micro Zero Day Initiative. And then Brian Gorens, who is the director of the zero-day initiative, which like basically manages zero-day initiative. What he does is, we have they make a product at Train Micro does that zero-day initiative work with Train Micro. They can make a product. I forgot the product name, but I can find it. They make a product. I think it's called TippingPoint, if I'm not wrong. TippingPoint is an intrusion detection system that Train Micro makes that has actual zero-day protection. I'm not talking about jokes. I'm not talking about just saying that you have zero-day protection or whatever. You have, so they have immediately, when they purchase the bugs from Pwn2Own, immediately, minutes later, the signatures are already pushed to the device and ready to defend against that attack. And that's their gold, as far as I know. That's the golden product, kind of. That's called TippingPoint, that is being sold to like high value organizations and important customers. Cool. And it's very crucial. And then that's the way that this whole thing goes. And Zero-Day Initiative is also interested in the techniques that the researchers use, because the rob chain that I make is different than the rob chain the other guy makes. And maybe in my rob chain, I use a technique which is not that well known. And that's interesting to Zero-Day Initiative researchers to kind of learn that knowledge and apply it to different kind of targets and stuff. So you're selling your exploit and your research knowledge both at the same time. And you said, and your exploit is being
you mentioned before that when you, I think this was off air, but that when you submit a bug, you have to submit a white paper along with that bug describing the vulnerability, right?
Exactly.
So the techniques
if you're participating
need
remotely,
to be documented.
So at the end, you need to provide a white paper and your exploit fully, and you need to explain your exploit and your white paper. Sorry for the bad English, but you need to explain both of them to the Zero-Day Initiative researchers and sometimes the vendor as well. But it all gets done in exactly the same day when you do the exploit. It's not there is nothing going back and forth with Zero-Day Initiative researchers. They're beasts. Like they even if you don't explain anything, they understand it. Like they're.
Wow.
I can't emphasize how talented they are. I think one of the most talented researchers that exist, vulnerability researchers. Like, I'm not saying they're the only one, but they are truly one of the ones that are truly talented.
That's
and they
really
work
cool.
there, and then they can understand your exploit like a cake. Like, it's easy to them. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. So you need to, at the end, provide a white paper with your whole walkthrough of what you did, why you did it, how does it work, everything.
Okay, gotcha. Wow, that's great. So there are some differences between these two competitions here, and that's what I kind of want to go through now, and continue going through that. So there's no interaction sort of before the actual event with the actual team, besides getting the scope, and that comes from ZDI. And then so how much time do you normally have before the event occurs? So they release, here are the targets, here's the scope or whatever. How much time before you're on site demoing your exploit, and what does that pre-event look like?
So 2 to 3 months is usually what you have.
Okay.
If I'm not miscalculating stuff, which I'm really bad at. I'm really bad with dates and stuff, time frames. But I think it's like almost kind of like around something near 2 months to 3 months. That's your kind of time frame before the competition deadline reaches, and then you're at the stage and you're launching your exploit or whatever. If you're participating remotely, and if you find a bug and you want to apply to attend the competition and you participated remotely, you will send your white paper and your exploit to the vendor. Not the vendor,
ZDI, right?
to Zero-Day Initiative, to ZDI, and then they take it, and then they make sure like you're legit, because you're coming remotely. You can be like an imposter or whatever. So because they're allocating time. But if you're coming in person, then you're good. You can just provide just enough details, and then you show up and you launch your exploit.
How far in advance do you have to register for that? Like, is that like you can do that up to like 2 weeks before the competition, or when do you register?
It's usually up to 1 week before the competition.
Oh wow, okay. And do they sponsor travel for people that have that are coming in person, or is it self-sponsored?
Sometimes this is sometimes they try to. Sometimes they pay for the travel, and the way that they do it is they say that if you're a previous Pwn2Own winner doesn't mean number one winner. So Pwn2Own calls a win when you have a successful exploit. If you can pull off a successful exploit on this stage and there is no dupe with anyone, they call it a full win. That's a full win.
That's
if
awesome.
You can be the number one at the competition, then you're the master of Pwn. So those are different things. If you manage to have a successful attempt with no dupe with anyone previously at Pwn2Own, like the competition before the one that is going to be happening, they say, okay, as a token of appreciation for you putting the time in, that again will give you this amount of time, this amount of money to support you to come to the competition again.
Wow, very cool. So this is a similar system a bit to HackerOne, which is there are two types of invites. There's first tier invites, I guess, and then there's like second tier invites. These second tier invites are normally the result of a first tier invitee plus oneing you. Yeah. So anyone who gets a first tier invite gets their travel sponsored, their hotel and their flight and that sort of thing. And that doesn't necessarily mean they've performed well at a live hacking event before. It just means that they have performed well on the HackerOne platform or against this target and were selected for this competition. And then the tier one invites can say, all right, I'd like to also take Sina with me on this trip, right? And then they select you. If they select you from the +1 list, then you get an invite as well, but you have to sponsor your own travel.
That's cool.
And so there's that sort of setup, which I think is really cool. The difference between
the ZDI. Listen, Pwn2Own is like Mortal Kombat, right? It's you go there, you gotta fight for the last rep, right? You don't have. It is professional. Yeah. As much as possible as I could think of.
Right.
But let me say, it's harder. It's harder to pull off.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's the right word in my vocabulary to put it together. It's harder, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have like that kind of like grace period saying on this specific version or whatever.
Right.
It's harder because they're trying to say that what we do is targeting real world at the real time, the second that their exploit is being run.
Right.
The guy shows up at the competition, exploits Safari, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, the same day,
insane,
the latest version, and you can't disable over-the-air update on the browser, right? It's getting the update, right? At exactly the same second, it just exploits all of them. That's like elite as it gets, as far as I know.
Yeah, no, it's insane, and it makes sense too why you need more time, because for these HackerOne competitions, we are attacking production environments as well, and they can submit patches and stuff like that, and sometimes that does happen. But these are hardened bug bounty apps that have been running a program for a long time, but the time frame is also much shorter. For us, it's only like 10 to 14 days between when you get the target to when you are standing there working, in the environment. So I think one thing that's a little bit tricky about this is in the HackerOne live hacking events, you don't have as much time to craft these sort of masterpieces of exploits. And there are still people that do it. For example, Shubs, almost every event that he goes to, Shubs from the Asset Node team, almost every single time he has like a Pwn2Own.
Crazy. He's a crazy guy.
He is. He almost has a Pwn2Own, level chain RCE at every single event, that we go to. I mean, it's mind-boggling. And he does that in 10 to 14 days, from scratch.
He's one of a kind. Like, it is like he's one of a kind, and what he does is truly like remarkable. Yeah,
I totally agree. And I think so. Yeah, there's definitely this aspect of like, if you're looking to be, if you're looking for an environment of more collaboration and stuff like that with the team, but also I think with your fellow competitors, HackerOne has a lot of places for that and accommodations for that. What does it look like to collaborate with a team in a Pwn2Own environment?
With Pwn2Own, usually you need to understand that the money that you're going after has a lot of conditions that you need to be careful about. Yeah. If a target has been put up on ZDI on the reward list, if you read the rules carefully, it says like 50,000 for this target, but it's 50,000 for the first win. What does that mean exactly? Imagine person A and person B and person C go to the competition and they want to hack this target. If person A goes first, they do a random draw, right? They randomly put the names of people in like a hat or some sort of a wheel. They I don't know, spin it, and then they take out the names. And then let's say the order goes to, I don't know, A, B, and C. Three guys, right? Three people or whoever, and then they go on, and then the person A manages to exploit the device successfully. Since he's the first guy or she is the first guy, they get full money for that device. Okay. They get the 50,000. Then person B goes. Person B can have three outcomes, kind of. 3 or 4 outcomes. I'll go over it. First, they can have a unique bug or completely unique bug chain. If they do it and they finish the exploit, so a full win is called, they get 25,000. They don't get the 50,000. They get 25.
Wait, so only even if it's a totally unique bug, just against that same target, they still only get the 25, not the 50?
Yeah, they get 25.
Oh no.
They only get 25. Only the first person. So you need the factor of luck. That's one.
Yeah.
But I'll go over more detail now. So, but the person now, let's say the person B goes and the full win 25,000. The person C goes, if it's a full bug, if it's completely new bugs, like, so if they manage to find bugs that the person A didn't find, person B didn't find, and the person C is so special, it's 25,000 again. But if it is a duplicate with those two other guys, doesn't matter which one of them, they get half of the half. So they get half of the 25,000. So 12.5, right, if I'm not wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah, they get 12.5. That's the money they get.
Wow, and, dude, that's very different.
But there are some wiggle rooms and some additional ideas to put out there. So each time for a target, you have two things. You have monetary reward and master of Pwn points. So a target is 50,000. It also has 5 master of points, master of Pwn points. I just call them points now because there's a lot of P's and I'll mess up the sentence. Yeah. So let's say it has 5 points and 50,000, whatever. If person A goes, they get the 5 points. Person B goes, it's a unique bug, but they're the second person, so they get 25,000, but they do get the 5 points. And so if they worked so hard to manage to find a lot of bugs, but they weren't so lucky to go first, they still might be able to be the master of Pwn at the end day, because the end day they count the points. Whomever has the highest points, they get to be master of Pwn, get recognition,
very cool,
some sort of a trophy, and some additional money, good money, really good money, so there's some wiggle room here as well, right? So imagine you're person C, right? You're nervous, you go on, you're like, okay, shit, first person A and B win, and then this has got to be a dupe, right? But for some reason, it says, I don't know, is this right? There's many ways to salvation or whatever.
Yeah.
There are many ways to do something, right?
Right.
So maybe for a bug that you managed to exploit, you only needed to chain 2 bugs. Maybe if I do it, I need to manage 4 things. Why? It depends. But I will go through an example with you to make it more established, right? But imagine you went on, your RC exploit consists of 2 bugs, an information disclosure and maybe a arbitrary file upload, whatever, right? Maybe you needed to disclose the file system path in order to be able to write to a specific directory.
Right.
So you needed, and the file path is random. So you needed to disclose it, whatever, right? So you need to chain these two things together. So your final exploit consists of 2 bugs, right? But imagine person 3 goes, right? So these 2 bugs were for person 3, person C, let's call it. But person A managed to, I don't know, use only 1 bug to get the RC, right?
Simpler
they didn't need the information disclosure, right? When person C goes, since they have 2 bugs and it's an additional bug that the person A didn't have, so
it's like a partial dupe.
That adds to your money. That it's a partial dupe, exactly. It's a partial dupe, so it adds to your money. It's based on some sort of a percentage, but it's not half of the half anymore. It's like some sort of a 1/3 or like, I don't know.
Okay, interesting. So more complex chains or chains that have more components to them get rewarded further.
The more complex that you can make it, the better it is.
Okay, man, there's so much.
That's kind of the way to look at it.
That's insanely different from the live hacking events. Because
so much rules.
In the HackerOne live hacking events, you only get a dupe if it's literally the exact same bug, you know? I mean, or if it's on the same endpoint or whatever, right? So if I get an RCE via, pseudo random number generator plus a file upload, right? Something like that. And you get an RCE via SQL injection to file write to, that sort of thing in a different endpoint. Both of those get the full bounty. However, if multiple people submit the same thing, then the same prize for that critical bug or whatever starts getting split, in half, in thirds, in fourths, right? So that's very different. And actually, the way that ZDI does it is very. For a second, I thought it was better for the researcher because it gets halved and then halved, but it's actually that target in general, right? So once the first person claims the first 50K prize or whatever for that target, the most that the researcher B and researcher C are competing for is 25 grand. Is that accurate?
Exactly.
Oh
you got it right.
No,
exactly.
man. So it's so much luck. That draw is worth 25 grand to you.
So much luck, man.
No.
So many factors. I told you, it's like
this is hard as
Mortal
heck,
Kombat.
dude.
I told you, it's it is, and. Lot of things you need to, like, the vendor doesn't push a patch, you're lucky, your exploit doesn't fail, you can finish it, and you have 3 attempts, and each attempt is 5 minutes, so you need to be careful with your everything. You need to, I've kind of wrote down like the steps that you need to go through for a target. I can read it for you, right? Just like quickly.
Yeah.
So basically with a target, before I read this, a lot of this is based on another talk that Alex Plaskett is a phenomenal security researcher.
Okay, let me write that down.
Who works at NCC Group. Alex Plaskett, if I'm not pronouncing his name wrong. He's a phenomenal security researcher. He's crazy how good he is. He's been exploiting everything that you can think of from back in the ancient time until now, and way more, I'm sure, in the future. He's a good friend of mine, and then he has given another kind of like an interview talk about Pwn2Own with in another YouTube channel or something that I forgot the name for. I apologize for it. This is my bad. Maybe I'll give you the link. You put it down there, or put it in a link or something, so people can go. It's a great YouTube channel, great interviewer and great interviewee. I think, I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
Great people in general, right? So Alex has kind of like put together like a kind of like a list methodology of how things go together when looking at these targets, and I'm trying to like replicate the same thing that he said. So basically, because I exactly do his method, and then once he sorry.
No, you're good. I should have actually told you before the podcast to get some water or something like that, because you see.
Let me get some water.
During this whole thing, I've been like drinking my coffee or whatever. Do you have water nearby, or you got to go grab it?
Yeah, it's let me go grab it. It takes a second.
Hey guys, real quick, I just wanted to give a shout to the Hacker Content team. They have been absolutely killing it the past couple months, taking the content from the podcast and condensing it down into consumable social media posts, whether it be shorts or text posts or whatever. They've been rocking it. So I just wanted to give them a shout out and let you know that they do all sorts of cybersecurity content as well as social media management. They do technical blogs. They do comprehensive social media management. So if your organization could benefit from any of those types of services, make sure you head over to hackercontent.com, drop them a line, and mention the podcast when you do to get your first month of cybersecurity content marketing services for free. All right, that's it. Let's get back to the pod. right. All right. So we're gonna let this man get some water really quick. Okay, so tell us about this steps for Pwn2Own.
Yeah, so the steps for Pwn2Own inspired by Alex Plaskett. What it says is basically you do background research, right? You have this target that they announced for Pwn2Own. I don't know, it's I don't know, a router, a smart speaker, whatever. You do a background research, right? You look for you start searching for the product to see if there were any previous vulnerabilities, previous write-ups, previous ways to get an initial shell. All of that could be important and valuable to you. Previous reverse engineerings and mitigation bypasses and stuff. You learn all of that, right? So it's better to build up on other researchers that are out there instead of starting from scratch. Sometimes you need to, because only some of the targets from Pwn2Own may get repeated.
Right.
Not all of them, right? So it's always best to do some background research, go through the previous vulnerabilities and all of that. And then after that, I'm just reading through it. Then you need to get the device, get a shell on it, basically some sort of a way to debug it and all that, to research it, to put it in a lab environment. And then you start, after you got a shell or whatever, you start mapping the attack surfaces, what's available, what can be exploited, what's important, what's excluded, all that. After that, you start doing reverse engineering, static analysis, code review, whatever it is, fuzzing, basically looking for bugs. And sometimes you need to, as you go, for different kind of targets, sometimes you need to make your own tools for that target. Maybe there is some sort of a tedious task. Maybe there is some sort of a condition with this target that you need to make a tool for. So you need to be fast, agile about it. Like writing plugins for, I don't know, like your favorite disassembler. There is Ghidra, IDO, whatever. Write something about it, for it. And then you have, after you, I don't know, found the bug through fuzzing, code review, dynamic, static, whatever you did, kind of magic. Then you get to exploit development where you make your POC. And then one thing that is really important is making your exploit as efficient as possible, as reliable as possible, and as portable as possible. Because the day of the competition, the POC gods will fuck with you the way that you can think of. Your cable goes missing, or your cable that you were using for 5 years without any problem starts not working, or this device doesn't work, or the battery keeps dying, or the system gets giving you a blue screen, or a kernel panic, or whatever. I don't know, or your USB-C hub doesn't work, or the libraries, the libraries that you're importing in your exploit don't work. And then, you need to, this happens. Now you need to move your exploit to a different machine. Maybe ZDI gives you a new laptop saying, launch it from this laptop. So you need to have your exploit ready. Even your laptop got, I don't know, burned or crashed or exploded.
Sure.
You have the exploit somewhere else that you can get it, somewhere secure, hopefully. And then you can put it quickly on another machine with no setup previously, and the exploit can be launched quickly without problem. And you need to be able to write your exploit as beautiful as possible, because this happened to me, right? So one time that I was doing the competition, at a certain point, I've got my exploit ready. It was like a full chain. It was a memory corruption vulnerability, and it was relying on a ROP chain that was like pulling off a ROP chain. And when I caught my flight and then landed in Toronto in Canada, and I went to the competition, and as it was my turn to exploit the device, one of the devices, when it got to my turn, I realized that the vendor had just pushed the patch. It wasn't even a security patch. It was just like a feature patch. And I think they did that purposely because they knew there might be like memory corruptions. It's not really far-fetched for a vendor to think that. And then they pushed like a feature patch that was just adding some sort of a string or something, that would just like cause the main executable on that device to have like different offsets. And then, that kind of led into my ROP chain not working properly. But since I knew from hearing out past experiences from other people at the competition that it's best to make an exploit, like refine and like make a clean exploit that would be portable and would be easily modifiable on stage at that moment when when it's your turn, you've already had a failed attempt and you have a couple of minutes to complete it, and you've put months of work to get something out of it. It's like an investment, and then you don't want things to go wrong, so you need to like keep it together and then do the changes, which I would, and especially like shout out to ZDI when you're at this stage, when you're on stage and you're doing your exploitation. They're super like calm and trying to help and try to even they ask you like, what do you need? What's wrong? Can we do anything? Tell us the problem. Maybe we can do something. Maybe we can change something. Like they always try to like come up with a way to help you. They love to buy the bugs. They love to pay the researchers because they know it's so much work. And that's what really good. That's what's really good about them. And then, long story short, since the exploit was well written, this I can kind of say, I managed to change what I needed to change without breaking a lot of parts in the exploit, which was exploiting a race condition and a memory corruption at the same time.
Wow!
And then got it working, and then it landed on the second attempt, I think, and I was super happy. And then I got it through, and then that was like a lesson to me.
The relief in that moment must be crazy. And well, props to you for building out a cool exploit. And I do have a similar story to this where, we only have 2 weeks before the live hacking events to actually do any of this stuff. So this one time I was really working hard on a hardware device, and I was going down this rabbit hole, and I knew that it was possible to get a very impactful, I'll just say, we were able to take over this whole device and look through the camera and look through the microphone, right? And listen through the microphone remotely. And
nice.
I was like, I know that this is possible, but we didn't have enough time. And I popped it less than an hour before the end of the competition, in that 2 week period, up to that last hour. And man, the whole team was sitting behind me, and I like showed it, and they're like, yeah, you got it. And I was like, wow. Yes, it's just the best feeling ever. So I think there's a lot of stress that comes along with that, feeling, but there's also a lot of payoff, right? Yeah,
exactly. It has a really good payoff, right? As I said earlier, right at the beginning, I didn't know at some point that even there's going to be jobs for it, or there is a job for it. It's just the feeling, the excitement, right? Of course, I'm working for money, right? Just like nowadays. But when I started, it was just like the only purpose was the feeling, and the feeling only. Yeah. And then the excitement, like I can't find it in anything else. Personally, I didn't find it in anything else so far.
Yeah. No, that's amazing, man. Okay, so you said, in this list from Alex, you've got create a very high integrity, easily portable. You've got all of the libraries and stuff you need packaged together. You've got all of your offsets in variables rather than just like added into strings or whatever, right? So for easy modification, you got your exploit ready to go. What's the next step in the process?
Yeah. So as I said. I went through a lot of steps, but after like your exploit is like proper, and then it's easily portable. You just one other thing that these might sound the same thing, but even though they kind of like collide, but testing your exploit again and again and again. I'm not gonna lie, if the device is not expensive, I'll sometimes buy another device, just a fresh one. I just plug it in and run the exploit. Just plug it in. I don't do anything else, because it might surprise you, but sometimes weird things happen. Like the first time that you visit the device, there is an AJAX call on the HTTP request that sets the time zone of the device without you knowing it. And at this on stage, the ZDI device is fresh out of the box, and maybe they didn't visit the first page, and then your exploit is failing. And you're like, why is it failing? And maybe it's because nobody has ever visited this certain page, which normally
that's a very specific example.
Yeah, it's like very weird stuff.
That's crazy, man. And that's great.
Crazy stuff. Yeah. One thing I finished from before, kind of like did an example about when you have bugs with like which is like a chain of multiple stuff, and then the more complex the bug is, the better, because then when you dupe, you don't fully dupe, you do like a partial dupe. One of the things is like another example will be, imagine you're exploiting a memory corruption, and then when you're exploiting it, this actually happened in one of the recent competitions that I went to. For some reason, when I was doing the memory corruption, I managed to pull it off to the memory corruption without the need to find the information disclosure and leak any addresses from to defeat ASLR, because I was like in my ROP chain, I was relying on some addresses which weren't getting randomized. But one of the team was clever enough that thought, okay, let's instead make our exploit harder, and we find an info leak and add it to our chain, even though they didn't need to. But they just made their exploit more difficult, because they thought, okay, if they did like a random draw and then we didn't go first and then we went second or third, at least our exploit is more complex, so we don't do like a full dupe, a partial dupe at least, which is a smart, and ZDI actually
that's like smart technique.
Encourages you to do so. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. I think
then,
those sort of things are exactly what we want to know about going into these competitions, right? Having that sort of metagaming aspect. How do you play the environment properly so that you can maximize your return? So that's really helpful stuff. Okay, man, I think I've got a picture, right? I think I've got a picture of what it looks like to do Pwn2Own a little bit more. The only other thing that I wanted to talk about was the master of Pwn title, right? So in a Pwn2Own environment, there's just one winner. You know, everybody who has a successful exploit is considered a winner of Pwn2Own or whatever. And then there's one person that comes out as the master of Pwn. Is there any awards for like second or third or fourth place, or is it just that one master of Pwn title?
So people go to Pwn2Own. They are, I think the sentence is, maybe I'm doing the grammar right or wrong. They are a winner at Pwn2Own, not winner of the Pwn2Own, right? So they're not winning the whole thing, but they're just one of the many winners at Pwn2Own, right? And then sometimes there is this like crazy geniuses who manage to win Pwn2Own, and then the whole thing, and then they will be nominated as master of Pwn. Who can be only one. There is no second place, no third place, just one place. And then they get a statue reward, like a trophy, which is always different. Either it's like a signed basketball in like a cool cage, or like a statue of a beetle, of a bug or something, which is cool. Just like a token of appreciation, and also a certain amount of money. And also, I think, let me just make sure that I'm saying this right. So with ZDIs, you have something called a status, which is so a lot of people know, but ZDI purchases bugs, and when they purchase these bugs, you get some points. I think it's similar to like Signal or whatever in HackerOne.
Sure,
I think so. But on ZDI, they call it like exactly. So you got like points. You got a status. You gather points, and then you reach a status with these points. For example, 15,000 points will get you a bronze status, and then 25,000 points is silver, and then it's gold, and it's platinum, which is the maximum status that you can have. And when you win Pwn2Own as a master of Pwn, when you win the whole thing, you instantly get a platinum status on your account. And these statuses, what they do is basically, what they do is they, whenever you submit a bug to ZDI, and then the researchers will like review it, reproduce it, make sure it's legit and all of that, and then it's cool. When they want to purchase it, based on your status, they do a multiplication on the amount of money they're going to give you. So if you're like platinum, maybe you get double of the money. If you were supposed to get $5,000 for an RC on a product, you get like 10 grand, right? based on the status that you have on the ZDI platform. That's pretty much it. And also, when I said the more complex the bugs is in the chain, you get like partial dupe, and that's like a technique to use. It's because don't forget, ZDI is buying the bug and also is buying your technique. So if you made your exploit more complex to adding more bug chains to it, it's good for them as well, because you're giving them more techniques to learn about. So you're like cool. Selling more techniques. Yeah.
That's very cool that they've found this a profitable business model with their product. Essentially, the result of this funds enough sales to make it worth it for them to pay out all these researchers. I think that's really cool. In the HackerOne environment, how this works a little bit differently. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, I bad habit jumping in people's talking.
No. I want to hear that. I want to hear that. Tell me that.
Okay. Do you know how Pwn2Own started?
No, I don't.
Okay. So with Pwn2Own, the way it started, as far as I know, at CanSec West, which is a security conference in Vancouver, Canada. Back in the day, I don't remember the exact date. Maybe 2016 or 17 or maybe 15. I don't know. One of those times, ZDI was still like purchasing bugs, and ZDI was a thing. And then CanSec West organizer asked the crowd that back in the time, people were like always saying like MacBook is the securest or whatever. And then they've asked if anyone from the audience can hack a MacBook remotely, remote code execution. And if they do, if they pwn it, they can own it. And then they asked, so ZDI was there as well, I think as a sponsor or something. And then they asked ZDI if ZDI is willing to purchase the bug. And ZDI said, yes, we purchase it for 10,000 if anyone can do it. And then somebody actually did. They found a vulnerability in MacBook. It's crazy at the time. They found a RC in MacBook QuickTime, and then they exploited remotely. And then Pwn2Own kind of started from there. Initially, it was only browsers. They were only like doing like, I don't know, like Safari, Chrome, Internet Explorer at the time. And then after that, it kind of like evolved into a lot of more devices, virtualizations, VMware, VirtualBox, like enterprise solutions, SharePoint, Exchange, and then Microsoft Teams. And then it kind of evolved into mobile devices, which is like Samsung, Sony, Xiaomi, Apple, Google, and then like enterprise solutions like IoT devices, smart home speakers, printers, and then after that it was like ICS products, which is like SCADA products, like like critical solutions. And then after that it evolved into automotive, which is the newest type of thing, which is like infotainment systems, smart EV chargers, and all of that. And ZDI started from paying hundreds of thousands, like 300,000, 400,000 total at one competition, to now paying over millions now. Like they pay, like at a single competition, they pay over $1 million now. And then, which is crazy. So the competition is way more now. It's much more. And there's a sad truth to one other thing as well, as back in the day, it was either solo researchers or team of like 2-3 people, just like solo people. Now people are competing who are coming from companies, like company sponsored teams who have like, I don't know, 40, 50 employee at the company, and they're paying the employee's salary. So no limit on that to work on these products. So
it's crazy.
If a solo researcher is working on it, they're not getting paid until they find the bug, right? But imagine you work for a company who's paying your salary. So, like if you're going to look at it like 8 to 5, you're going to get your salary at the end of the month. So you have that calmness. You don't have any stress on it. And then, those people will like 20 people come to the competition, right? So, and then you're not competing against a team of 2 or 3. You're competing against a company of 20 people, and they're doing it to get PR, which makes sense kind of, but I'm just saying it, putting it out there, even though it is a well-known thing, but for anyone who doesn't know, things get more difficult when you're competing against a company who has. So imagine if when I'm competing, I'm breaking the hardware, attacking the hardware, reversing, fuzzing, writing the exploit myself, when that company is doing it, they have 5 experts who only understand hardware. Since they were a little kid, they were designing PCBs and then just building like hardware, right? So they give the device to there. So the initial stage was getting a shell on the device, right? They get a shell on the device in 2 hours because they're 5 seasoned hardware like experts. They get it in 2 hours, and then they pass it on to the next department who are like experts in writing fuzzers. They write the fuzzers. They pass it on to the next department. Meantime, like they're working on different time zones 24/7. The research has never stopped, never paused, and they go. And then people like me or someone else show up, a solo guy, a 1-man army, 2-man army, 3-man army show up, and they're competing against these teams, right? Which is crazy.
That is crazy. That's very different.
People should know. Crazy. It's hard.
Yeah. Wow, dude. Well, it seems like the competition has evolved a lot over the years, and hopefully we'll see some accommodations for researchers that are going at it more single-handedly versus these big teams. But also, as the game changes, our approaches to the game has to change, and we've seen that in the HackerOne bug bounty world as well. Just trying to build collaboration units essentially, and also building automation out to try to help with these sort of things. But that also highlights one of the main differences between the ZDI competitions and the HackerOne world, which is, this is probably the biggest difference, is ZDI only pays for remote code execution. And, at a HackerOne event, there's normally 2, 3, 4, 5, remote code executions, but there's like 700 other vulns, and so once again, when talking about the differences between these two worlds, the fact that we're able to pay the bills with our little CSRFs and our XSSs and our IDORs, while working on these more complex exploits, really, I think makes it sustainable in the long term.
Got a good point.
For us to be able to continue to do bug bounty. Whereas, like you said before, ZDI, the Pwn2Own competitions, it's like hard mode, right? You got to go in there. Who knows if the wheel doesn't stop on your number, then there goes your car, and there's a lot more volatility to the process. And then also the exploits accepted are much more, have to be much more technical, have to be much more RCE oriented than maybe even business logic oriented or impact to the actual target ecosystem oriented. So very, very interesting to see those differences there.
Yeah, and there are some people that so at the last Pwn2Own that was held in Vancouver, when I said these executives RCs only, and then the difficulty of competing against these companies is this guy whose name is Manfred Paul. I don't know if you know him, but he came in, one guy exploited all the browsers: Edge, Safari, Firefox, Chrome, all of them exploited by one guy.
Holy moly!
And he's this crazy dude, and he won the competition. A lot of companies were there. I'm not naming names, but a lot of companies were there, and then he managed to win it. He's exceptionally talented. We're talking about someone who's I think is out of this world. I don't know, how
1% of the 1%
reach his. Exactly. He is. I can't even analyze him to put him into words. He is crazy. But with Pwn2Own, it's hard mode, it's RC, lot of factors like luck and a lot of other stuff. But it's an elite competition, and I know people who are only doing it to prove to themselves and challenge themselves to do it, and mainly compared to the money part.
I think that's if I were to do it. If I were to do it, and I think I will someday, I think that would be the reason. It's not as because these incentives are good, but more so I would like to compete in it. I would like to be, just going back to the HackerOne world. The master of Pwn for HackerOne is the MVH, the most valuable hacker. And when you win, you get these belts. I'll point to them, back here, these belts.
I can see it. Yeah.
And I've got those, and I I would like to also conquer the world of Pwn2Own, but man, when you're up against people like this guy that rolls in here, this Manfred dude that rolls in there and just demolishes all browsers in one attempt, it's like, wow, that's definitely going to be a challenge to go up against. And I just can't imagine, I just can't believe there's not more incentive there, and because this is such a challenging thing that people are doing. I do want to get your take on one more thing before we wrap up, which is, do you think that ZDI should, in the Pwn2Own competition, should accept bugs that are not RCEs in the future? To compete with the other bug bounty arena. Because obviously, there are some situations where it's like, oh, I've got full auth bypass, but I don't have a way to turn this into RCE. There's just no way to turn it into RCE in this front end of the system, or whatever. There's lots of impactful bugs that are out there that will just destroy a product, but those are not being paid for from in these competitions. What are your thoughts on that?
So ZDI. Well, let's look at it this way, right? Again, it's their rules, and it's not really up to me thinking like what should they or shouldn't they do. But for some devices like mobile phones, things that like make sense. Like with mobile things, I think they have like exceptions saying that. If it's a mobile phone, we allow connecting like a USB, like a USB something, because there's a lot of stuff going on over like the Lightning protocol that the cable on iPhone uses. Like a lot of protocols go on there, and a lot of people have found memory corruptions. Like it is accepted on those, or like for example on mobile devices. Like phones, like Samsung, Xiaomi, whatever, they allow one-click exploits as well. So basically, you share a link, and then when they click on the link, and they do that. And they also, when you have when you go to the competition and you have a valid exploit, but you're not able to finish the exploit on stage, but it is an actual valid exploit, they also give you some percent. They offer to you that they will still buy it from you if you want to, but for a small percentage, just so you don't feel like you wasted your whole time. It is not the same price as you could have get, but you couldn't finish the bug, and this is just like a token of appreciation again for the researcher too, saying they can offer. What do the numbers
look like on that? Like, are they like half? Are they like 10%? Are they like?
I don't have it in my mind. I think it's different every time. It really depends.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. All right, man. I'm looking through this document here. I think we've covered most of the stuff that I wanted to cover with regards to Pwn2Own and what the experience is like, and your approach to hacking and that sort of thing. The only other thing that I think we've got time for is I would like to have gone through some of the bugs that you've reported recently. But I'll just ask you one question about the WhatsUp Gold Pre-Auth RCE. And that you've blogged about on your website, summoning.team. In this exploit, there's a lot of technical explanation where you're going through the code, and I love how you show the trace of where what function calls what, and create that little graph and that sort of thing. That's super helpful for understanding all of this. I'm wondering, so this is utilizing the WCF protocol, right? Within this .NET environment. And
that's right.
So this is a TCP based service. Is that accurate? Let me see here. Or was that the other one that? Yeah.
So the thing is, we have something called WCF, Windows Communication Foundation. Yeah. It's super easy to understand. The way that you could put it is, imagine
it's RPC, right?
It's RPC, right? You're remotely calling procedures. Exactly. You're remotely calling methods, right? They expose some sort of methods under code that you can call those methods remotely. Okay. And then in order for this call to happen, it needs to go through a custom protocol. There used to be .NET Remoting, which was very, very vulnerable. Right. And they deprecated it and introduced WCF, which is this one.
So WCF is like an alternative to .NET Remoting for this
substitution.
Scenario.
Exactly.
This is XML based, it seems. And so...
depends.
Oh, it depends. Okay.
So you can configure your WCF to use different kind of, like they call it like like different kind of bindings. So you can have like HTTP binding or TCP binding, and like there is way more bindings, but they basically what these bindings mean is like, do you want it to be sent over HTTP or TCP? And if you choose HTTP, most of the times it goes through as like a SOAP protocol, which is made by Microsoft itself. Yeah. So you don't write the SOAP. Microsoft takes care of it for you. They make your calls into like SOAP formatted things, or you use the TCP way. I mean, like they call it TCP, but everything is like, all of it's basically over TCP. But the TCP binding, what it does is it's another custom protocol, which you're sending like some sort of like encoded bytes and stuff like that, and like a size field, bit field, like a structure and all of that, like a protocol, and then you send it across, which is also taken care of by Microsoft. But writing the exploit wise, when you're dealing with like a binding, which is HTTP, at the end you can like write some sort of a Python code to send like a HTTP request over and get it done with. But if you're exploiting a TCP based binding, you need to write like a C# client, which was the other blog that I published, which was a C# client code to write the exploits.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So that all makes sense. That cleared it up. It's a way to do RPC, a newer version of .NET remoting. Exactly. And it could be over TCP, it could be over HTTP or SOAP or whatever, just depending on what binding is being used. And I'm wondering, so when we're looking at these sort of, obviously your thing is .NET and you're really good at that.
Thank you.
How often are you seeing stuff in WCF versus just like a normal HTTP, IIS or whatever environment? And is this potentially an environment that researchers might be sort of sleeping on within a lot of enterprise applications or IoT devices or whatever?
Yeah, so with WCF, I really recommend people to look at it. It's not something new that I've been doing. I've been doing it for years and years, and I've been submitting like bugs about WCF a lot of times. It's just something that like people don't tend to blog about this, so it keeps being like a little bit not as well known. Even though if you Google about like WCF exploitation, you will see blogs going back to like 4 years from now that we're talking, or maybe 3 years from now, like maybe from like 2020 or 2019 even. People have exploited it. People have given talks about it. People have written blog posts about it, presentations and everything, but you don't see it being blogged about publicly a lot of times, as much as it could have been. But I really recommend people to basically start understanding what WCF is, start writing like some sort of a custom lab environment and stuff, build it up, and then try to like experiment with it, understand it, exploit it, and all of that. And then which we also do in our course, by the way.
Okay, so this is covered in the .NET course.
Yeah. So in the course, there's like every, like I can bravely say like 80% of any kind of remote technology in .NET that can happen, any kind of like RPC, WCF, .NET rebooting, or a lot of other things that I don't want to name now because I want to like keep it as like the secret sauce in the course. Sure. I cover them all, and how to exploit them, and how to audit them, and how to write exploit clients for them, and all of that. But yeah, it's WCF is worth investigating and working on. Yeah.
Very cool. I like that a lot. And just one last question on that. So, this one is the one in the blog that I'm looking at right now is listening on port 9642 and 9643. If we see those, I assume that is specific to this application. This isn't on every single WCF
to
service.
This application. Yeah.
So when we're looking for WCF services, are we trying to track down this? Like in this example, it says nmapi.exe.config. So is there normally like a .exe.config file that we can look at to see where the various routing is occurring and what kind of bindings are being registered?
Good question. So when you're auditing WCF, you're dealing with three things: address, binding, contract. Based on the Microsoft documentation, you're dealing with these three things, right? You need to find the address, the binding, and the contract. These are the three things. The address is the address, like /nmapi, whatever, right? The binding is the type of binding that you're going to be talking to, HTTP, TCP, and many others. There is not just those two. And then contract is actually the code, the methods that you want to invoke. So when you want to exploit it, you need to find or you need to write the interface for those contracts. A contract is basically the methods that the target server is offering to you that you can invoke. So you need to build it up, and after you build these 3 up address binding contract, you need to if you work on it and just with the blog and Google around, maybe you can get to it and how that you can stick these together and then finish the exploit. But the thing is, whether there's the question that you asked, okay, how can we now find this tree? So it's not always a config file. It can even be in the code. So there can be no config file at all. Config file at all.
That's tricky.
So you need to be also exactly. You need to be able to decompile and look for WCF setup and registration and those addresses and binding and contracts in the code by decompiling it with dnSpy or whatever decompiler you want to use.
And what
it's
are
not always config files.
What are some keywords we should be looking at for that? For example, I see in here basic HTTP binding, something like that. If we search
but the word binding itself will give it out. Binding.
Okay, perfect. Love that. So then that'll help us track down our sources, right? These are services that are being exposed, and then we can sort of track through to the sinks.
Exactly.
And that actually makes me think of one more question I wanted to ask you. There's a big debate on the podcast. I think this is mostly occurs when we have targets that we're looking at that doesn't have a massive code base, because if you have a massive code base, you have to address things a little bit differently. But do you normally start with sources or sinks when you're doing a source code analysis? Are you normally looking at all right, this is how there's 8 services here, and I'm going to go through every single function for every single service? Or do you look for vulnerable code patterns and then work it back up to a source?
Let me put it this way, right? This again, I don't represent any I don't know, wannabe researchers, whatever. This is just me as a single person who's answering this, right? If you look at the basic answer is I do all of them, but let me elaborate a little bit. If we start with sinks and then work our way back to sources, find dangerous things and then find out how can we hit them, how can we reach them, that's good. Why bad? If it was bad, it wasn't a method. It is good. I use it to this day as well. But don't limit yourself to only that as well. Sometimes following sources to sink, sometimes just following sources doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you think they're gonna hit a sink or not. Just following the sources. Let's just following them, see what the heck is the application is going to do with this that I'm going to be providing to you. Because sometimes if you only look for the sinks, sometimes there might be some sort of a logical bug which isn't relying on a well-known sink or a sink that you might say, but a kind of behavior that is dangerous to this certain application, right? So it's always good to also follow the sinks, follow the sources. Doesn't matter if you know indeed that it's going to be hitting a sink. So both of them, sink to source, source to sink, that's both good. And that's what a lot of my personal friends do the same thing too.
Yeah. I think that's what we all do. Yeah. I think it also depends. If you see a bunch of really obvious stuff, you might jump right into the sinks and try to trace your way back. But what I always say is, if you spend time on sources, you're never gonna regret that time, because it's time that you're going to understand more about that application, understanding the application, and understanding how
that's an amazing answer.
The application flows, and you're going to get a better feel intuitively for that app that will help you trace back up from the sources as well. I mean, from the sinks as well. Does that make sense? Right. Am I representing that correctly?
That you got it right on the point.
Perfect. All right, man. Wow. Well, this has been a long episode and a great one of my favorites so far for sure. I would love to have you come back on again sometime and discuss a little bit more of these nitty-gritty details about .NET and, we're getting in here, we're checking out these WCF services, that sort of thing. So we'll have to set that up again in the future.
Amazing.
But for now, man, Sina, thank you so much for coming on. And anything you want to shout out before we end the podcast?
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. First of all, let me take you up on that offer. Whenever you feel like, please give me a ping, give me a shout out, and then I'll show up. We can do like a session. I'll share my screen or whatever, and we exploit a .NET vulnerability. I don't know. We exploit a Exchange server, a IIS server. We exploit a tricky .NET based targets or whatever. I'm happy to do so. You guys build up a great platform, and I like to contribute to it because I know it has a good spotlight on it, and it helps me and you at the same time, I think. So I appreciate you having me here. That's first. Second one is I just wanted to give a few shout outs to some people who've helped me a lot, and then I remember the name. I've tried to write them in the notes, so you're gonna be looking at me and thinking that I'm reading from something, and that's right. Let me just bring it up. Yeah, so I just first I want to give a shout out to the 0 Day Initiative, ZDI. They have been always supportive of my work, and helped me to get into the competition and show up, especially Brian Gorens, as I said, who's the vice president of threat research at Trend Micro, and also Dustin Childs, who's the head of threat awareness. These are like two lovely folks who were like always helping me through Pwn2Own and just like making the dream happen, basically. Next, I want to thank Michael DePlant. He's actually a ZDI employee. He's a researcher there, and he's such a great guy. He sometimes runs my attempts on Pwn2Own, and then when he runs them, he's always like he's a calm person and helps me to run my attempts really good. So shout out to him as well. I want to give a shout out to. I want to give a shout out to Radek and Radek from Flashback Team. I don't know if you know him. He and Pedro Ribeiro, both of them, Radek and Pedro, shout out to both of you. They're both great people. They have a hardware exploitation training that you can go to. These two guys, Pedro and Radek, I think the only reason that I got into hardware exploitation was because of these people. I personally never took their training, but I know for a fact that their training is phenomenal, and I've only learned my starter .NET hardware exploitation. I talked a lot about .NET, but my hardware exploitation from their public research and public blog posts, and they were the reason that I got into hardware exploitation. I want to give a shout out to my dear friend Surush Dalili. He's always been an idol to me. What a legend! He's one of my best friends. He has, I can say like everything that I know about .NET is because of him, and that's it. Like it's because of him. I shouldn't have a .NET exploitation training. He should have it, but for some reason, I don't know. The up is down. Something I don't know. The night is, all of it like reverse everything, and then I'm doing the training, and also Steven Silly, Mr. Me. He's the only reason that I've got into vulnerability research. I've been trying to follow his footsteps and everything, and I still haven't reached his level, but I'm seeing that I'm stepping on the right path. And another shout out to two other people, and I will promise you I'm done. Chadi P. Chadi works at Trend Micro as well. He always does phenomenal .NET research and .NET exploitation, and he's always a inspiration to my training, to my exploits, to everything .NET that I do. He's always an inspiration to my work. I get inspired so much from his work, and also Orange Sai for basically like shifting the whole infosec like concept to like another level. Like he always like brings up with crazy other stuff. There's a lot of other people who are here that I like to give a shout out, but these were all them. And one other person, lastly, is the guy who I said at the beginning, Maysam Munsef. He was a mentor, a teacher, a friend to me, and he's always be. And I've learned a ton from him. And maybe if it wasn't because of him, I wouldn't be doing InfoSec at all.
Wow.
Yeah,
man.
that's it. Sorry, such a long list.
That was legendary. I think one of the things about you that I've gotten the impression from this is that you are very grateful and you're very humble. And even just in the times when we're off camera during this podcast, like you've always been very accommodating and you've been very grateful that you're able to be here. And I feel like it's vice versa, man. I feel like I'm so lucky to have you on the podcast and get your takes on all this stuff. So that's the best situation, right? Where we're both grateful and happy and pleased to have each other. So thank you so much for coming on, man. And I just wanted to say,
thank you.
Of that list, Sarush, obviously a legend, but Chuddy and same for Orange, but Chuddy PB is someone that just came on my radar recently with this SharePoint XXC that came out. And I actually had a note in this episode to talk about his research on the SharePoint XXC because he echoes something that you mentioned as well with the debugger being so important, which is that you can validate your assumptions instead of guessing. And in his research, he exploits an XXC
DTD processing was disabled.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it, man. The DTD processing was disabled and the XML resolver was set to a bunch of different stuff and is like, wow, why would you even try XXC when you see this? And I think it's because you have more introspection into the environment and see what's actually going on. So
debugger.
Debugger is key. PB is definitely on my tweet mention, on my tweet notifications on list now. So all right, man.
His name is by the way. By the way, when I said these people's names, maybe I used their handle or something. Chuddy's name is Pewter. Just want to say it. And sorry for the long list. I don't get a lot of chance to be on something that will be seen or heard by people. And when I am, I've got to give shout out to those people because if it wasn't because of them, I wouldn't be here, honestly. And thank you so much for having me here.
Of course, dude. Of course, man. That gratitude, it warms the heart. And for anybody, that's listening, that's thinking, wow, that was a long list. Hey, now you've got a list to go and look at and people to follow and research to look into because those are the people that have made Sina who he is, and clearly they've got a lot to offer the world. So, all right. Thank you so much, man. Great podcast. And that's a wrap on this episode of Critical Thinking. Thanks so much for listening. And if you want more critical thinking content, head over to ctbb.show/Discord. Join the Discord. There's lots of great conversations and chats going on over there. And if you want to support the show, there's the Discord subscriber tiers, which give you access to masterclasses, AMAs, hack-alongs, exclusive scripts, and an exclusive chat channel with us. We'll see you there.